special meeting. I guess it's a special meeting because it's the second week
It's not the regular.
of the Bicycle-Pedestrian Advisory Committee, January 9th, 2017. Shall we do a roll call and ID? I'll start here. Tom Modick, Chair.
Ken Bukowski, member.
Miguel Guerrero, Vice Chair.
Celeste Burrows, member.
Dave Pittsburgh, member.
Marcy Greenhut, staff, Public Works Department.
Kate Sergeant Richards, member.
We have other members of staff here, and
Mike Roberts, Public Works. Maurice Kaufman, Public Works Director.
Diana Aquino, Planning.
and others.
I'm a member of Public Lead Woe Batesville Project.
Anyone else want to identify themselves?
Cynthia Armour, Vice Spray from the East Bay Bicycle Coalition.
And Robert Arias, EY.com.
Okay. Do we have any public comment on items that are not on the agenda today?
So if anybody is here to speak on anything that's not already on the agenda, now's the time. Otherwise, we'll move on.
Is that it? Okay, so we've got like 1 minute to do Bike Workday. 4.1 Bike Workday 2017 City Sponsorship Recommendation. And this has already been written
So
out for
the
us?
intention here is there would be a two-part Bike to Work Day item, because you all last time voted to give the entire meeting to Powell Street. I didn't want to take up any time with anything else this time, but Bike to Work Day, the packet for it that Bike East Bay sends out came to me after the last meeting, and they want to know before we can get this approved at council for the, after the next meeting, if that makes sense. So this meeting is kind of key for Bike to Work Day.
So we have to make a motion.
So today would be the day. If you have any questions, there's sponsorship levels on the list, if anybody's interested in seeing that. But for the next meeting, we could have it on the agenda to discuss things like how we want to spend the money for Bike to Work Day. And this would just be to say thumbs up, thumbs down.
And there's a specific amount involved?
Just, it's $3,000 for Bike to Work Day, $1,000 for staff to spend on T-shirts and refreshments and whatever else is needed for Energizer stations. So it's a $4,000 total. And it's been about that level for at least a few years.
Yeah, I think we bumped it up from 2,500.
Yeah, the sponsorship levels have changed a little bit, but it's not until you get up to $5,000 that it changes what you get with the donations. So, are there any other questions about that?
I'm sure most of the members here know about this. You probably do that. Yeah, we've all voted on it in the past. So, shall someone make a motion?
So moved.
Huh?
So moved.
So moved? I was going to say that, yeah, we should do the same, the 3,000 and the 1,000, and I don't see a lot of objection here. Still didn't do it in a minute.
So you're the second,
You
right?
want us to vote?
It's up to you. You're the
Okay,
chair.
I'm seconding it. Let's take the vote. All in favor?
Okay.
All against? Passes unanimously. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so what we're really here for, which is about the Powell Street improvements discussion. So,
Maybe I'll chime in at this point. So,
sounds good.
okay, so we want to use this opportunity to discuss all the various public improvements that have been done at the intersection of Powell and Christie over the years. Historically, the city of Emeryville has done quite a bit. It's always been very conscientious about pedestrian flow through that intersection. In particular, dating back to probably before the Bay Street development was approved, was the first pedestrian safety improvement that was done at the intersection of Powell and Christie, which was to put a bulb out on the northwest corner of the intersection near the gas station. And at that time, it was even before pedestrian countdown signals were invented, and we were one of the first to put in countdown signals at that intersection, at that location. The other thing at that time we did was to put in a little nose refuge at the center of Powell Street, so that when cars were making the left turn from Powell Street, making a left onto Christie, Christie Avenue northbound, making a left onto westbound Powell, there's a little nose that sticks out right near the crosswalk that we had put in to just create a little bit of a refuge area for the pedestrians. But we've always had complaints about from people about feeling comfortable crossing that intersection. And in 2005, the city council engaged a contract with the UC Berkeley Traffic Safety Center to do a human factors safety study of that intersection. And what we wanted to do is get a perspective from people that weren't traffic engineers, but people that could interview cyclists, pedestrians, and watch the habits of pedestrians using that intersection, as well as the way drivers were using that intersection. And so the UC Berkeley Traffic Safety Center did a report that covered the intersection of Powell and Christie, but we were also looking at the comfort of pedestrians to walk through that whole corridor along Powell Street, starting at Frontage Road and Powell Street. So we looked at that intersection, the intersection at I-80 and Powell Street, Powell and Christie, and then the fourth intersection we looked at was Shell Street at Christie Avenue. And we did a study back in 2005, a copy of it's here, and they came up with about 90 different recommendations that we looked at for that whole corridor. And as part of that, we narrowed it down to a few that was worked into our capital improvement program in 2006. And we ended up spending about $500,000 on public safety, traffic safety improvements. And we ended up, at Frontage Road, for example, we ended up putting in a pedestrian phase for the right turn for westbound traffic onto westbound Powell onto Frontage Road. We added a right turn, a red light for those pedestrians. We did a lot of safety improvements at the off-ramp, where we improved sight distance for cyclists and pedestrians that were coming east-west on Powell Street. There used to be a big embankment coming down on the east side. We leveled that out to make a landscaped area and to improve the visibility for pedestrians. And then at Powell and Christie, there was a number of intersection improvements that we did for pedestrian safety improvements. We ended up moving the stop bar forward for the Christie Avenue move that was going southbound. We ended up putting in flashing beacons ahead of all the right turn moves for Christie going southbound and for Powell Street going eastbound. We put a pedestrian lead phase in for 3 seconds for the pedestrians crossing Powell Street. And
crossing from where?
For the timing for the pedestrian moves crossing Powell Street, there's a 3-second lead time.
Crossing toward the south?
So it would be for pedestrians crossing Powell Street and for pedestrians crossing Christie Avenue.
But is this the crossing where the accident occurred?
There was where the accident
crossing?
occurred, there's a 3-second lead phase
For
pedestrians there. Yeah.
Can you explain one thing, I'm sorry, that you just said? You said you installed a flashing phase?
Yeah, there's a flashing beacon.
What does that mean?
Mike, could you try to pull it on the internet so we
The
can kind of
flashing
look at it?
beacon is facing a different direction. The flashing beacon is facing the cars that are driving east on Powell, but the people making the crossing are crossing on the bike path. But the flashing beacon may make people think that there's a crosser, somebody's crossing on Powell Street.
It's like a hawk signal?
No, there's a
It's just not in the
pedestrian
right
flasher about 100 feet or so ahead of the intersection.
Okay.
So when vehicles
So it
are
tells
traveling
people it's coming.
and there's a pedestrian phase on, that pedestrian flasher
Okay.
flashes. So that cars that are approaching the intersection know that there's a pedestrian crossing ahead, and it warns them. And so that exists on Christie Avenue. Mike, maybe you can show.
South.
So there, you can see it here in the picture.
That's the pedestrian
Okay,
flasher
and
that
there's a
flashes
flasher.
when the pedestrians are in the pedestrian phase at Powell and Christie.
Okay.
And there's one also, if you're traveling on Powell Street heading eastbound, there's another one right there.
So if you were stopped at the light at southbound Christie, you'd probably be beyond that.
Your
pasture.
Yeah, if you're stopped at the light, yeah. At the time, when we went through the intersection improvements, everything needs to follow the MUTCD requirements. And all our improvements that we did were reviewed by the traffic engineer. And since it involved Caltrans intersections, we had to go through the Caltrans engineering review as well. But the requirement is you couldn't put in a flasher at an intersection where there's a signal. So we had to have it in advance of the intersection.
So the flasher on Powell, as you're traveling east on Powell, alerts you that somebody's crossing Powell, or alerts you that somebody's crossing on the bike path?
It lets you know that there is a pedestrian phase activated for crossing Christie Avenue.
Okay, so you're traveling east on Powell Street, you see this flasher, which is quite a ways back from the intersection. I would expect that it's alerting me that somebody's crossing Powell Street, but you're saying it's alerting me that somebody's crossing Christie along the bike crossing?
Yes, because if there's a person that's approaching the intersection and they're crossing Powell, the cars that are approaching it have a red light, so they're going to stop anyway.
Right.
So this is there so that these cars have a green light. It's flashing there so that when they're getting ready to make their right turn,
If the driver knows, that it means that
it's just, they need to be aware that there's pedestrians crossing. They need to be cognizant of that. If there's pedestrians crossing Christie, they would have to come to a stop anyway. Right.
I just want to comment that the placement.
I mean, Powell Street.
Yeah.
The placement of that sign, I've driven past that many times. I've never noticed it until I walked past recently. I've never seen it flashing. And the way that it's placed right before the parking lot exit makes it look as though you're alerting drivers that there are people coming, like walking across that path, not the actual crosswalk that they're about to approach.
Yeah, I would say that it would be more advantageous if that could have been at the intersection, but that's where, with the review of Caltrans and with the review of the traffic engineers, they were saying that we couldn't mix a flasher with the intersection. We have some ideas now,
okay.
But that's one of the improvements that went in the project.
I mean, the other problem is when you want to cross Christie, you're supposed to walk 150 feet down Christie, when you want to cross Christie,
Right.
and nobody does that.
When you want to cross Christie, where?
Yeah, so if you're going west on Powell Street and you get to that corner and you want to cross to the gas station, you're supposed to go all the way down to Shell Mounds to walk across, and nobody does
Because
that.
there's no crosswalk on that side.
Right.
Got it.
I mean,
So the point of this is just to give some historical perspective, and then we can talk
Yeah, and I'm not
about-
saying that this solved all the problems, but there was a lot of discussion that went into this study. A lot of time went into it, and we interviewed a lot of residents. We interviewed a lot of people that use it as bikes and peds. We watched all the vehicles, and then the city council ended up doing a project that was about $500,000 worth of work, and it was completed in 2010, I believe. Eventually completed in 2010.
So the improvements are really good, but wasn't this just phase one of 3 phases?
So this was actually phase one of what we call the Powell Street design guidelines. I think it was a urban design plan. So there was a number of phases that we were looking at. This is the first phase that was looked at in that study, and these are things that we could do right now. And the next phases in that study would be things that would require a lot of property acquisition, and then we were hoping that we would do with the redevelopment agency. As you know, the redevelopment agency no longer exists. So if in the future properties develop, we have a plan in hand that we can look at potentially implementing. And that plan was not necessarily for pedestrian safety, but it was more for transit and just kind of reconfiguration of that area for accessing transit. Danny, you might want to talk a little about the history of that.
The goal of the urban design, the Powell Street urban design plan was to figure out how to make it a truly multimodal street, to continue to accommodate the cars and trucks, and to have make it better for pedestrians and cyclists and for transit riders. And the third phase has acquired properties to the north and south and has a bus station in the middle of it. So, but will depend on things redeveloping to the north and south before that can happen.
So now, as I was saying, this study was done in 2005. And since 2005, we've had updates and approaches to doing things for cyclists. And we've got the new not standards, but what do you call the NACDO design guidelines and things that we have in our toolbox now that we could look at. And so one of the thoughts we're thinking about is, we're hearing from the bicycle community and pedestrians that they want to see if there's anything further that we can do at this intersection and along the corridor. And what we're thinking we might want to do is re-engage a contract with the UC Berkeley Traffic Safety Center to try to look at what the effectiveness of what the improvements that they recommended, how well they're working, and if there's any further improvements that we might want to consider along the corridor. So that's one of the things we're considering. The other thing is that in brainstorming, one of the issues that we're noticing is that, and it's standard for a lot of intersections where you get your pedestrian cycle comes on at the same time as the green light. And we're able to have a pedestrian-only phase at Shellmound and Christie because we're not getting a lot of traffic coming out of Christie Avenue coming on in the westbound direction. So we were able to take some of that time in our cycle length and dedicate it to an all-pedestrian phase. We're not able to do that at Powell and Christie. It's a major intersection. It's a major corridor through the city. But one of the things we're thinking about now is we might want to consider having a flashing yellow arrow occur when the pedestrian cycle is on. And that would be like having this flashing beacon that we have here, but right at the intersection.
Right.
So that if a pedestrian presses the push button, when that green ball and a pedestrian cycle comes on, at the same time you get a flashing yellow right turn arrow come on. And that would indicate to those motorists that they need to proceed with caution. That's something that was not in the toolbox
Or
at
a
the time.
flashing red, because the pedestrian has the right of way and they're crossing it.
No, you can't have a red light, and a flashing red means you can't.
Means
go
you have
out.
to stop. And
Yeah,
then,
the flashing yellow means you proceed with caution. So the MUTCD would allow for that, and we're trying to figure out if there's a way that we can make that work with our program.
that would be a big improvement. Yeah.
So that's one of the ideas we have, but we might want to consider other ideas with another update of this study with the UC Berkeley Traffic Safety Center.
The issue there, and I think it's even more dangerous at the next intersection, which is the freeway on-ramp, because of the way, because the crossing is, where the crossing is placed, and that the curve is more rounded, is that when the pedestrian has a walk signal and just steps off the curb, coming from behind them, a driver may believe he is the right way.
So where is this again? I'm sorry.
Well, where the action occurred, but then also I think it's even more dangerous at the freeway on-ramp, where a pedestrian who is walking west on Powell, crossing the on-ramp, gets a walk signal. The walk signal comes on at the same time that the cars are kind of speeding. They think they're on the on-ramp already, and they're speeding around the corner, and they think they have the right of way.
So this is right in front of Denny's we're talking about.
Yeah, and so it's the same problem that occurred here, only here the crosswalk is set back a little way, so the driver should be able to see that there's a pedestrian there, but it's the same problem. I think the hazard is that they both think they have the right of way. The driver thinks he has the right of way, the pedestrian thinks she has.
Well, the pedestrians have the right of way. That's the state law, right?
But the driver driving is in a dedicated lane, sees a
So
green light.
let's go to that intersection.
Can I just ask, I hear that we can't have an all-way pedestrian scramble here,
Right.
but why can't we have a red arrow when a pedestrian pushes a light just in that one direction?
I would have to research that. I don't know that that's something that's allowable in the MUTCD.
And I want to say this is not only, I'm looking at the satellite, and I want to second Ken that I wish there were more, there was a four-way crossing here. But there's only,
four-way crossing on the other side.
that there were just 4 crosswalks instead of 2, but there are only 2 crosswalks that allow pedestrians in this intersection, so that already makes it very pedestrian unfriendly.
Right, so we had issues with, there used to be a crosswalk here, actually, that went across here, and there were a lot of near misses because of the blind intersection coming around here. You can't,
Because of the
there's a grade issue on this side, so you have to have the location of the crosswalk needs to be so far back that people come around this corner wouldn't see the pedestrians in the intersection. We have to remove it.
So instead of making it safer, you
We had to remove it. It was very unsafe. We had a crosswalk here with a signal phase, and these cars coming around the corner, we were having a lot of near misses.
But people are using it anyway.
Well, I don't know about people that are crossing here now. It'd be desirable to look at it.
It is
and
technically
it's actually-
legal to cross there at that intersection, isn't it, if you're a pedestrian?
It's illegal.
Technically legal.
That would be I don't know. I'd have to.
Well,
You're
there's
allowed to
signs
cross, you're
saying-
allowed to cross at any intersection.
Well, no, there's signs saying cross, use other intersection, right? That
So
barricade
you
signs.
gotta go down and around
Yeah.
and
So
stuff.
I just want to point something overarching about this is that this intersection is designed for intuitive movements of cars turning, to make it easy for cars to turn right and left, and it's unintuitive movements of pedestrians. Because it's pedestrians, like cars, want to take the shortest route, want to do things that make sense. No one wants to walk back a block across the street or, whatever. And I think that we need to, I would advocate for making it a little less intuitive for cars. Because as long as cars are like, this is saying, welcome, come, turn right, do this, we're going to have problems like this, that we're going to have moments where cars say, oh, there's a barrier to my going now. This is an unfriendly moment for me, and I have to stop. To get them to slow down enough to see pedestrians, to get them to stop for pedestrians, I don't think it's compatible to have a freeway type intersection with unlimited right turn movements and pedestrians.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing to mix. I mean, this is the major entry into the city, right?
Right.
And so it's a very, very difficult thing to mix.
But people walk there. I mean,
Oh, I know, people walk there. What
What
the study found was people walk there, but a lot more would walk there if it were safe. That's what the study.
I would walk
that's
there.
what
I
the
would
study
walk there.
found. But I mean, short of a
But
bridge, and
I-
even if you were to build a bridge, people probably wouldn't want to use it because it'd be very inconvenient, you have to go very far away.
What I want to say is people don't walk across that intersection. What I have observed in my very few
They run.
times, they run with fear in their eyes. And I'm not exaggerating. That's how I've crossed that intersection. It's terrifying. The one across Powell. Well, both of them really, but the one
Okay.
across Powell.
So this, and then of course this one is really long too, because you've got the distance between here all the way across, and then you don't have the grades to make it, because this is up high, right? So in order to do a crosswalk on this leg, you would have to move it very far into the intersection to get the grades.
Oh, you wouldn't want it there.
Right, it makes it even longer, and then the pedestrian time is even longer.
Yeah.
And holds the traffic even longer. So this one was removed because of a very dangerous sight distance problem.
What if you squared it off?
But I also want to, I really want to frame this discussion because you just said holds up traffic. Pedestrians are traffic, bicycles are
Everybody's
traffic.
traffic,
And so instead of holding up cars, we're making it very inhospitable. It's like a shark-infested water that we have to cross here for pedestrians. So, how can we make it safe? I mean, we're talking about really
Right, and that's
basic
who
safety.
we-
This isn't just comfort, this is safety for pedestrians. Like, how can we do that?
I think, we'd like to make it more inviting, and the more inviting you make it, the more difficult it is for cars. And then there are different modes. We need to look at all modes, and we get that. And we've done a lot of work to try to make a balance here. And on the other side, I've got the Emeryville route, where I'm getting a lot of calls from the Emeryville route because they're concerned about all the congestion around. And we're currently working on the study. We had traffic engineers out over the holidays. We were counting cars, and we're trying to figure out how we can make the cars move better so the buses can get through. Because people want to be on the bus, they don't want to be in the car. What's happening is people are getting out of the buses and they're using Uber instead. And that just adds more cars to the street, right? So what we want to be able to do is make it work for the corridor, but and when you start introducing pedestrians into the middle of it, it slows everything down. So it's a balance, and we have to look at all modes and make sure that it works for everyone.
But I'm sorry, I'm being a total pain here, but I just want to say another framing thing, which is that if the cars are clogged, there's too much traffic, speeding cars through faster may not be the answer. We added lanes on 80, and is there less traffic? No,
But
it's
I don't
worse.
think they're getting speeding.
Well, I'm not saying
Oh, there's
speeding,
quite a
but
bit of
I'm just
speeding
saying,
on Powell.
making it
There is
easier.
some, but during the off hours,
But if you
right.
want to make it easier for the bus to move, part of the answer might be a road diet. Not making it easier for cars to move through the city, but making it harder so those people are going to be like, I don't want to get in an Uber because I'm going to be sitting in traffic. That will discourage, but it's easy to bike or walk or take the bus, So I think I just want to say maybe we can change the mindset here a little bit, that making it smoother for cars to move isn't always the, you know, the way to get the buses here.
And where we can add, more bicycle-friendly and pedestrian-friendly elements, we definitely are in favor of it. And we just need to be aware of what the impacts are and study it, and somebody has to make a policy decision, right? And so, I mean, if you were to take out a lane of traffic everywhere just to make it for buses and bikes, there's the major enforcement process with that too, to keep the cars out of there. We have a hard time keeping the cars out of the buffered bike lane on Powell Street, on the 40th Street Bridge. We have a very hard time keeping them out of there. And now we're finding with the study that we did that the lane merge from 2 down to 1 lane is causing a big part of this backup that we're experiencing. And so there's going to be pressure to do something about that lane merge. I can sense that's coming. And so the policy decision is going to need to be made. Well, do you want to live with this congestion, or do you want to get rid of the merge and keep the 2 lanes all the way through? I can already see that coming up. So we need to figure out what we want to do to be able to keep it well balanced for all nodes.
Okay, so if I may interject here, I think that it's the two right turn lanes in several of these places here that really
Like this one,
are
we have a double right turn
huge
lane.
problems, right? 2 right turn lanes there, 2 right turn lanes
Here.
going on Powell into there. When we did our little study down underneath the freeway there, I rode down and across to get to the bike path, and I took my life into my hands, and I was like, that was the most difficult bike ride I've taken in Emeryville in years. It was ridiculous. The people don't look for you. I think that as much as we need to, quote unquote, keep the cars going through and blah, 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 it's not going to be any good until we get rid of at least 1 lane in the middle, have a decent buffer, preferably landscaped, something that's real and substantial there. So
Well, the other
if you
thing is
have to go across, you have to go across. And I think that also that the walk phase eastbound on Powell and probably the walk phase southbound on Christie should have, like you see, say at the grade school in Albany, big no right turn, flashing light during the walk phase, where they can't turn right and run over you from behind.
Yeah, so that would be...
Because that's what's going to happen.
That would be nice, but that would be talking about gridlock and river. So that's a policy decision.
Well, as we go further into the future, maybe people will decide that they don't want gridlock and they'd like to take the bus and take their bikes.
But the buses won't
actually walk
but the
around
buses
town.
won't work because they'll be stuck in traffic.
The thing is that right now, I mean, probably more people walk there than we realize, but there's not that many pedestrians, so how much would it slow it down if we had a red arrow? You know, I don't know how often that, you know, and there could be a delay, you know, you can't do it twice in a, you know, there's a delay if it just ran so that the cars get time to go, but then the pedestrians would have, you know, you could put a long delay. I think people would rather have that.
You know, to do a pedestrian only, because what you're talking about is pedestrian only phase. You're talking about adding like 45 seconds to every cycle. And at least 45 seconds.
Only when somebody presses the button. Might as well make this supposed smart.
45 seconds.
But it's not going to be every cycle, is what I'm saying. Is there not going to be a pedestrian in every cycle hitting the button?
Right, but it has to be set up that way so that your cycle lights, and they all have to be coordinated with everything around it, right? And so it's been looked at in the past, and in the past, no traffic engineer would ever recommend it.
So,
Because
Because they want cars moving through.
Well, no, because it's a level of service F plus, you know, I don't know, it's just really, because there's not enough, you know, you're gonna get a lot of people frustrated, even pedestrians, because they're gonna have to wait a lot longer for their cycle length to come out.
Right.
Have you ever crossed on San Pablo and had to wait a long time for your pedestrian cycle? Well, you're gonna have to wait that much longer to get your ped raised. But you'll finally get it by yourself, but
right, I might live, you know, I might have a better chance of making it across the street without taking my life in my hands.
Right.
I mean, what I'm hearing you say is there's no way to make this safe for pedestrians, and so I don't, like, what's the solution?
That's what I'm saying, is that we need, what we're suggesting is that we contract with the safety center and look at all the solutions. It could require modeling it to show what the impacts would be if you had an all pedestrian phase, so everybody knows what those impacts would be. And then, of course, if we, the city, have to coordinate with Caltrans on all our timing, because we're right next to the intersection. So if we wanted to do an all-ped phase, it would impact the off-ramp and the traffic coming off the freeway. And it would have to get their approval as well. It's not just the city deciding to do it and doing it on its own. So there's a lot of hurdles to go through on that. And I think before you just put it in, you've got to really understand it. And we can model it, and we can show it what it looks like, and make a decision on that. It would have to be at the policy level of whether or not we want to go that route. But it really has been studied in the past, and we know from looking at it what the impacts would be.
Well, and maybe if it's going to impact the off-ramp traffic, it might be good in combination with some of the things we talked about after that off-ramp visit, which would reduce off-ramp traffic because it would reduce the people who are just driving through when it's backed
That's what
up.
backs it up, is people driving through.
So it might be a win-win.
I think that something has to be done now to improve safety there. And it might be what you suggested, a flashing yellow light when the walk phase is initiated. I think it should be a flashing red light, and I kind of agree with what you say. I'm in that neighborhood all the time, either driving or walking. There are not that many pedestrians crossing, and so even if it would take too long to have all red, if we're all crossing in all directions, if you just had a flashing red in the place where the pedestrian has pushed the walk button, it would slow that down. It wouldn't slow the rest of the
So
down.
if I'm recalling right, flashing red doesn't mean that you have to that you can't stop. You
No,
have to stop. It means you have to stop before you proceed.
Exactly.
And
It's like
that might
flashing.
be something that's I have to find out if the MUTCD allows that. Flashing yellow means you can roll slowly through. Maybe flashing red is something else we could look at. I don't know if that's something that's in there.
In this case, it would mean you stop before you make your turn because there may be a pedestrian in the crosswalk. It would only come on when somebody had pressed that crosswalk.
Right, that would be
And
the
like I
idea.
said, I've been there a lot. That bike trail, people don't cross there a lot. And where the accident occurred, no one crosses there if they can avoid it. If I cross there, I walk sideways so I can see what's going to hit me from behind. And the same thing with the freeway on-ramp. But yeah, so somebody has to tell the driver that there's a problem here. It's kind of like you said, it's a very confusing place for drivers because it's complex and there's so much going on, and there's a lot for the drivers to pay attention to. And if all they see in front of them is a green light, that's not going to stop them, and it's not going to alert them to this very small person.
Yeah, so we're hearing that. We're hearing that. So
there may be short-term solutions
Yes.
and longer-term
Well,
solutions.
we need something now.
But also, flashing yellow does mean proceed with caution.
Well, that would
So,
be a big improvement
yeah.
because right now there's a green light.
Yeah.
Right.
And what does that say?
And it's a green, is it a green arrow or
no,
just
it's not a green arrow. It's just a green ball.
Yeah, when the pedestrian pushes the button, it's a green ball, and that's a separate phase from the green arrow.
Well, there isn't. Is there? Oh, the green
The
arrow.
green arrow comes on. It's called a right turn overlap. So in other words, you get the green arrow comes on when these cars are making their left turn. A green arrow comes on so these cars can make their right turn. And
Okay.
there's nobody in the crosswalk.
Right, right.
You can't have
makes
that green
sense.
arrow come on when a person's in the crosswalk.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense.
But whether or not it's flashing red or flashing yellow, that's something we can look at if the traffic engineers say that it's something that is doable and it meets MUTC requirements. I mean, that's something we can experiment to see if it works.
But it would be
But that's not like an all pedestrian phase, which I was.
Right. I know that's a big intersection to have all pedestrian phases, although I think that is the only way to get across.
Okay, I think we should have some other folks who have been raising their hands. So.
Just a question on the flashing yellow. I don't think it's a very common use to have like the green forward and flashing yellow. And I kind of imagine that if I was driving and I saw something flash yellow, I would assume that it would flash red next. And so it can be like, oh,
Right.
now I have to go, like either I have to go now fast.
Right, so what my first suggestion to the traffic engineer was instead of a green ball, it comes on as a yellow flashing ball. And so the traffic engineer said, well, we could also set it up potentially where you keep your green ball on for those cars that are going straight and left. and flashing yellow right turn arrow. And that's what they're investigating to see if they can do. So I'm not saying that because the flashing yellow ball would be allowable under the MUTCD. They're researching whether or not the flashing arrow would work. And now I'm hearing flashing red. Well, maybe, now I don't know if it's allowable. We've got to see, we've got to look it up and see how it works.
I think there's one thing to keep in mind is that ultimately you're talking about a giant metal machine with one person of flesh and blood. So having something that protects the person is obviously should have a primary position in the car. And the other thing is you keep pointing to policy, and I think it's time for Emeryville to join the 21st century at this time. While cities in Hamburg are getting rid of cars by 2025, you're talking about how we should increase the number of cars. In the last meeting, people said that the population here is booming, which we can all see actually. And so that means there's going to be a lot more people on those streets going to buy and grocery shop. That means there's going to be a lot more residential areas there. It means a lot more pedestrians. And as a city, that should be the primary goal should be to make it livable for the people, not for trucks delivering stuff to the grocery stores. I mean, the truck will eventually make its delivery, whether it has to stop 45 seconds or a minute or 2 minutes, it doesn't matter. But the person is what you're trying to protect. So if you keep saying policy issue, the policy should be modernity and pedestrian and bicyclists and environmental friendly solutions over cars. That should be the policy.
I would agree. I think in the long run, we're going to get rid of some lanes here. It's way too big. Both of those streets are way too big, and they just invite people to, whip around that corner at 35 or 40 miles an hour and go across that bridge at 50 or 60 miles an hour, which is what they do regularly. And then boom, they're crowded. They hurry to get through that light, and now they're in Oakland and they're still going 45 or 50 miles an hour up there.
All the lanes and arrows make it a very confusing place for drivers. And I know driving through there to be really careful because I know what can happen. But for somebody who is not familiar with the area, it's just, just looking at it, looking at all the arrows going various directions. The driver is looking at all the directions the car might be coming from. And a pedestrian that's sort of off, kind of behind their line of sight, is going to be the last thing that they see. So all the lanes may help the cars get through faster, but it makes it more confusing and more distracting for the drivers. And it makes it harder for them to see by the relatively small pedestrian stepping off the curb.
Okay.
I just had a question about, you're recommending a study, like a further study to learn more about it. In that study or the original one, is there a comparable intersection? Because I don't think I've ever seen an intersection that looks quite like this one, honestly. Do they compare it to anything else that's more effective or less
No,
effective?
they were just looking at this particular intersection.
Okay. So there's no like sort of guidelines of an intersection like that has similar lane structure as this that they could
and that's
compare it
something
to?
we could look at and see what they've done in other areas. I mean, I know if you went to some place like Roseville where you have these really massive intersections and pedestrian crossings, something you can look at. And I've seen over there where they have big bike lanes and everything through there, but this is a lot more urban than a lot of areas, a lot more people.
Lisa, I don't know if you saw the recent segment on Braun about freeway jumping. It's Stanley Roberts. He has a people behaving badly segment from time to time.
Okay, no, I haven't seen that.
Okay.
Getting off
I'll
and getting
forward
back
it to you,
on.
but yeah. I mean, I look at the improvements here as just a lot of little Band-Aids, that will hopefully make a dent in the safety of this. There's no silver bullet. But one of them, that was exposed by him is that people are getting off on Powell and getting back on the freeway jumping.
Right. Oh yeah. More of that.
Well, they get off up by Mandela
So
and go all the way across to Emeryville.
one of the things that came out of this study was to make the off-ramp a left turn and right turn only and to eliminate the through.
Yes.
And you can see the striping's there, but people still continue to jump the freeway. So one of the things that's probably slowing that down now is that we've got ramp meters on that came on. So you can't just get on. You have to wade through the ramp meters now. So that I anticipate the volume coming down. But the other thing that's happening is we're working with Caltrans and they're ready to implement some very, very, very quickly in the next few months anyway, some measures that'll help alleviate that freeway jumping.
Do you know what?
What are we doing?
So,
You want
do you want
to,
to talk about it?
you want to.
So Sergio, our Caltrans District 4 representative, who was at our September meeting, couldn't make it tonight, he meant to. And so I'm just gonna pass, you have that, right? I don't know who wants to take a look at this, but these are some of the changes
Maybe
he's
Mike,
recommending.
maybe you want to.
There's some short-term and longer-term.
Marcy,
Marcy, do you like a copy of
Yeah.
the memo from Susan?
Say what?
Do you like a copy of the letter?
I just
Oh,
passed
we
them
just
all
passed them all
out. But, you know what, I think I can get it on up here.
Hold on a second.
And
Let Mike explain. He's got a
Mike
copy
is
of it.
gonna talk about it.
Okay.
You can get more.
So you can see in Sergio's memo that he's talking about signing, striping,
It's on the screen.
and some signalization changes. I'll just go step by step here. He's talking about adding an advanced stop bar. This is for the eastbound 80 off-ramp. Moving the turning arrows for that approach. Striping out the island so that hopefully that'll dissuade some of the jumpers we were talking about. And let's see. Oh, and then putting in lane lines for the turning movements. So that's the striping work he's talking about. Also wanted to change out some of the, or relocate some of the existing signage, the exit speed warning sign, and install a signal warning sign. And he's Caltrans is suggesting to change the no through traffic sign to a no through traffic symbol.
What's that?
I think that's maybe something you can.
So
you got a copy. All right.
I'm sorry, this is not bigger, but it's like, you know, a straight arrow with a red circle line through it, so, yeah. So people that don't want to read words can look at a symbol.
Well, not everybody speaks English. You know?
That's
I
true.
think it's,
Yeah, that's right.
and it's quicker.
Yeah,
It
than
is.
reading.
And it should, and hopefully there's enough universal symbols now, and people starting to realize that we're all recognizing this.
Now you're up on the freeway.
I know.
And they're also proposing to install bike ped warning signs. As far as the signal, they kind of agreed with what we had suggested and changing the green and yellow balls to green and yellow arrows. You know,
These become arrows.
further indicating that it's only turn movements allowed there, not through movements.
Can I just comment that I'm really impressed with this list? This is almost all of what we talked
Right.
about at that
Right.
meeting that Sergio was at. And I want to say, Maurice, you're saying, oh, Caltrans are a big problem, but they're not.
No, I'm not saying that.
They're part of the solution.
No, but
Historically, there's been-
Caltrans has been very,
Historically,
very proactive, but you're gonna have to work with Caltrans on the timing. Timing is a much different animal, so it's a much different animal.
But I also say, I just
guess
want
we
to say,
could
I
use
think
yellow
we may
arrows.
Yeah,
we
yeah.
may be working with a different Caltrans than you have experienced in the past. You may have a little PTSD, but maybe, maybe, you know, I think that they've got a slightly different mandate than they used to, and they have some liability if they don't
Yeah.
allow Emeryville to make our intersections,
Tom?
you know, friendly.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I spoke with Sergio earlier this week, and I did want to point out a couple of things on this. One is the fact that Caltrans does support the measures to restrict right turns at the location, and that they already have traffic operations staff out there doing counts and evaluating the possibility of doing that. But that is something that would take a couple years. The other one is that he does say that there's a backlog on their maintenance work, so that even though the striping work that's proposed would normally take 3 to 6 months, it's possible it could take over a year. Having said that, he does in his email say if the city wants to apply for an encroachment permit to install it earlier, they can. And
I think they were talking about signal, not the striping work. What was the other work? The other work we were talking about was the
blank out
The
sign.
blank out sign.
Yeah.
The blank out
I'm sure that would apply to a number of different things. But so there might be an encouragement from Caltrans here that if the city wanted to see something change on the streets sooner than end of 2017, early 2018, you might want to take it in your own hands. If possible, maybe that's something that the BPAC would recommend, or if not recommend, ask, maybe send a letter to Caltrans saying, yes, please do all this, and please put it at the top of your list.
What I read from the letter was the blank out signs were the only things that.
Yeah,
hoping that-
they're suggesting 3 to 6 months for the things I just went over, and then it would be 2 years for the blank out sign they're estimating.
What's a
And,
blank out sign?
That would restrict the right turn if it's activated by the
Like the one in
pedestrian.
Albany?
Right, at the grade school.
It would turn in red when you push the pedestrian.
Right, so in other words,
Changing
if you
the
turn up,
green
if the
light
pen
to be
fit's going.
It's blank until you push the button.
So what we might want to consider is a city-funded project to do the work that would take longer by Caltrans.
Question.
Sure.
This is strictly about the off-ramp.
This is
Yes.
this is about the operating.
What about
Yeah.
the Powell Christie intersection?
Well,
The Powell Christie intersection, we're proposing that we engage UC Berkeley Traffic Safety Center and look overall at what kind of improvements we could do. We're considering to look at that right turn arrow, whether or not it's flashing yellow or flashing red. And then, so that's one thing we're looking at, but I think we really need to engage in another study to figure out what can be done there and what the impacts are. I mean, I hear from this committee, and I kind of anticipated that they would like to have all pedestrian phase or eliminate a lane. I anticipated that kind of idea coming from this committee, but I think we need to look at it holistically, what the impacts are along the entire corridor, and then make a rational decision as to what we want to do there.
But for right now, the flashing yellow or flashing red is something that we can implement very quickly as a temporary
It needs to
measure?
be budgeted in a capital improvement. So we would have to go to city council and make a recommendation to do that. And before we do that, we still need to check back with the traffic engineers to see if that's something that's allowable under the MUTCD. And if there's a way to set up the signal so that it could be working to allow for a flashing yellow consistent with a green bulb. So there's programming things we need to look at. It's not a standard, it's not something that we could say, you've seen it somewhere else. And we've got to make sure that it can program it.
What's the time frame if you do wind up doing a study? Like, what's the beginning to end time frame?
Well, I need to call the safety center and see if it's something they're interested in doing, and then get a timeline from them to see whether or not they're able to do it. And then we'd work with the committee and get back to them. But over the next year, we could try to prioritize it. We have funds in our bike plan implementation capital improvement program that's unallocated to a specific project, so we could use those funds to pay for the stuff.
I do want to say that our last project that required a study, which was the speed humps on Horton, took a lot longer than originally anticipated, and that was a much smaller project. So I don't know if there's a way. I know it ran into some contractual obstacles
It
or
was
something.
because it was
but-
grant funded, and we had to get certain agreements in place.
Okay,
So
so
we're
this
going to
wouldn't
use our
have that.
city money.
Okay. I also want to say that I'm looking at the NACTO guidelines, there isn't, I don't know if there's anything in here about exactly this kind of intersection, but there is something where there's an intersection that it's a major intersection with a bike and ped crossing, and they've got a bike and ped sign right at the intersection, and they've got one hanging over the street with flashing red lights that can go on when someone pushes a button, I'm assuming. So they've got more signs sort of alerting people that bikes and pedestrians are there. This is hanging over the intersection, and this is right at the post.
Is that a signalized intersection? Or
It's a
is it-
signal, it looks like it's a signal, well, I'm not sure if it's a
It looks like it
signalized
might be a
intersection
stop, big
or not. It might not
fancy
be.
stop
Yeah, so
sign.
that's the thing. So you've got to.
That's the solution, a big stop sign. Four-way stop sign. Just turn the power off.
I like that.
Right, Ken?
Is there any way to shorten these crosswalks?
That could all be looked at.
But
It could all be looked at.
Just look at it, the sky view, it just looks like the crosswalk is further back, and it's very rounded there, but still, and it's longer than it would be if it's all just.
I
So
think
there-
it actually was shortened already as part of that earlier project, wasn't it?
We
It
did.
looks like there's
No,
a
there
bulb
should only be
out.
2 lanes at the
And
off-ramp.
also the
We tried to shorten the
rounding,
distances as much as we could.
the
Yeah.
rounding, I think if it's too, I keep thinking squaring up would help, but then what about these big trucks? I don't know.
You got to
how
be able to
that
make
works.
those turns.
Is it for the trucks
This.
And the buses.
and the buses that
Talk to
that's
us
so
about the
round?
other- You have a single lane here, you have to be able to make those curves.
I'm sorry, Cindy?
So you have 2 lanes here, so you want to be able to make the turn without encroaching into the
Other turning lane.
Yeah. So, but we
In
can
fact,
look
is
at
that
I
truck
mean,
making a right turn there in that picture?
Looks like.
Looks like he's turning right.
Yep, that's a big,
Not from the right turn lane, but from the main, oh no, maybe
from
not.
the second.
No, he's going onto the freeway.
He's going straight. But this,
Oh.
could we straighten this out? Maybe. The other thing that we did here is we put in high visibility crosswalks. These were a new standard that we came out of doing the study here. We tried to put all these types of crosswalks which are more visible. So that was another.
That's a big improvement in that area.
So this, we would study whether or not it makes sense to straighten this out, make it shorter, if it does that indeed.
Like at Aileen and Market and Adeline, you know, they're just shrinking that thing down,
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh, yeah.
right? Just dramatically changing the way.
Oh, because they had a bike lane there that people were just, driving it, yeah.
Right.
I use that island, that middle island a lot as a refuge.
You do here?
Yeah, you need a bigger island. As
I use that all the
global
time.
warming happens, you need a little bigger island.
When we first put this little nose in, people were hitting this thing all the time. You can see it's pretty well damaged. I mean, we had a
I'd
lot
rather
of
they hit
claims
the
that
nose
people-
of the median rather than the people inside.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we put it in there. Yeah, that's why we put it in there.
No, it's-
We had a lot of people hitting that.
Islands are good.
Go ahead.
When Bikes Bay met with staff, there was a number of different recommendations that come out, and one of them was possibly, if you could stay at that intersection, please.
Which one?
The one you were just at.
Okay.
The Palace.
One of the possible follow-up items was squaring the corner of those two intersections.
This one here.
That one and the top one as well.
This one here.
No, on the left.
It's where the two
Yeah,
crosswalks
the two
are.
crosswalks. So squaring that off and also adding one of those little yellow pedestrian, like flagpoles or signs at the nose of that median.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
I don't feel like that would require a study. Could that maybe
That
be
could go,
like
that's something you can do right away. That's not.
squaring off the
Yeah.
intersections?
The little paddle, we can put it right away. Squaring off the intersection needs to be designed. We have to see what the truck turns are to make sure that, this is a major way to get a corridor to get into the city. To square it off that too much would be a problem, so you gotta see how much you can reduce that radius.
But that might be something that could happen like in shorter term, before a
Well, it would
huge
have to go through
safety
a process,
study.
and if we're doing this study, we could look at that, and then if we decide that that's what we want, then we have to find funding to do that, and then we have to program it. So, it's not like we have money ready to spend on it. We've got to find out where we would get funding to do that. Right now, it's not a project that's in our traffic impact fee, so that's where we're trying to fund a lot of our projects, is traffic impact fee that we collect. So if we were to use those funds to build it, then we would have to potentially amend the fee study to incorporate that project.
Sure. So I'm just trying to see, because I love the idea of doing another safety study and evaluating, what have been the effects of the improvements that have already gone in, and what more can we do to make this, a Great Bay Trail segment, to make this a better connector for people staying and living in Emeryville. But in addition to that, because that's long term, right? That's going to be, you're going to do a safety study, and then the year after you kind of decide which projects are going to go in first, and then you get funding. So what can we do in the short term to actually get something done that
So
will
I
prevent
think
future
if we
incidents? And
find out,
I'm not done yet.
yeah.
So there's some of these we've talked
Right.
about, but are there maybe some other simple solutions that we can?
Well, that's what we want to try to figure out. And so, like the flashing yellow seems like a pretty simple thing to do. But it might need some engineering. It's not just a matter of adding a bulb. I don't know whether or not it's something that we have to add signal heads to it, or whether or not the existing heads will accommodate it. So if it's something really simple where you change a bulb and some timing, that's really easy to do. But if you're starting to get into the design effort, eliminating lanes and that kind of thing, that's going to be a lot. It's not going to be a quick thing to do. We've got to
So maybe I'm looking for like a medium level. What could, because those are, the radiuses on those are very wide, especially on that bottom one.
And that
It's
bottom
about the
one
same.
is, there is never a time when cars are not turning right ever.
Yeah.
Like never. There's no safe time. It doesn't matter if you have a pedestrian light or not. That is not a safe crossing ever, because cars come up. and turn.
That's why I don't think that, it works to have, well, I'm sure it works for people that are going shopping, But it doesn't work to have two right turn lanes at either one of those two places. That's, I think, the major conflict there. You could shorten the whole distance across, you could, have larger sidewalks, you could have
And then
a
the
larger
question is-
buffer in the middle. Yeah,
But
but
what
I
does
think
that
that's
do-
what
but
it,
what
I
does
think that's
that
what
do-
we're gonna have 10 years from now, no matter
What does
what.
that do to Emeryville? And I know I get a lot of pressure from them to try to. move things
Well,
along.
hopefully, you put a little pressure on Waze and make it so that they don't send people down our side streets and stuff like that as commute routes, and maybe they start carpooling or something, and, build it and they will not come.
Well, and
I'm sure the developers love that term.
I mean, this is a very different type of street, but I just want to say I lived in San Francisco when they took Valencia Street from being 2 lanes each direction to 1 lane each direction with a turn lane in the middle and bike lanes. And I had a car at the time and I was really worried, and Valencia Street traffic was better than ever after that happened. And since then, San Francisco's made it even more ped and bike friendly. And there's probably more traffic on that street than ever, but like 70% of it is bicycles, so it flows pretty, it gets congested. I'm not saying it never gets congested, but I think they took out the middle turn lane and made the sidewalks wider there. You would think that it would slow things down, but it actually did the opposite. It's counterintuitive, but I'm just saying I saw it in action, and that is what they found with studies. You add lanes, you get more congestion. You take away lanes, you get less congestion. That's what happened on 80. They added lanes. Congestion is off the hook worse.
So we have typical weekday, you get your weekend, and then you have your holiday season. Holiday season, it's really, really super saturated conditions. And so we have shopping center, regional retail area, and people come from all over. And it's hard to get into town right now with the configuration we have. So if you take away lanes, it just really is going to exacerbate that. So we have different, during the holiday season, traffic's a lot different than a typical weekday during the regular time of year. So it all has to be thought through. So.
Maybe if we can't do anything to improve, or can't do much to improve the safety for pedestrians because cars have priority, maybe we should have warning signs for pedestrians like, beware, dangerous crossing. And I think, have you been in Yosemite and when you're walking, like, there's signs showing what will happen if you walk too close to the edge of the cliff and the waterfall, and they show people going over the waterfall. I mean, there's a warning to not get too close to the edge. What do we need to do?
Well, I did in Salt Lake City. I just heard a podcast that they have big orange banners in buckets at the intersection that pedestrians are supposed to carry across, but I don't think pedestrians should have to carry big.
They tried that. They're taking their flags off.
Not a warning sign.
Stealing them.
If it's going to stay hazardous for pedestrians, then pedestrians need to be alerted. Be extra careful here because, this is a dangerous crossing. And this is the best we can do, and it's still dangerous.
I want to echo what Tom said about the second lane right turns. Almost every time I've had an experience with a car and them not seeing me has been because of that right turn from the second lane. So, what would it take for us to restrict that right turn in that second lane only, not the first lane?
Again, it needs to be modeled, and we need to see what it does to the traffic, and then a decision needs to be made on how you deal with it.
And so what I'm interested in seeing is something tangible that we can come back to next meeting and say, these are the top 3 things that you can do within the next few months, and then a phase 2 of things that you'd like to do in the future after a study. To me, it feels like I'm risking my life every time I cross this crosswalk, and I don't want to wait a year for improvements to happen.
So how about a proposal that we get a recommendation from this committee to move forward as quick as we can on an update to the study, so that we can go to City Council, appropriate funds for that, and then move that forward. And we can reach out and get a proposal and try to,
Someone
bring
want to
that
make a
back as soon
motion?
as it's available.
Before we do that, I just want to say I think there's a threshold issue, and the study was done in the past. Some improvements were made, but it wasn't enough to make it safe. And if we do little bitty things, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm definitely in favor of the yellow arrow or whatever we can do, because any bit probably helps. But if it's still death-defying, it's death-defying. And I just want to make sure that however the study is framed, that the goal of it is to make this, I'm sorry, to make this a crosswalk that pedestrians can feel there's a high amount of safety for pedestrians. Because unless you get over that threshold, it's still going to be very unappealing to pedestrians and literally unsafe for them. You know, we can make little improvements and it'll be a little less likely that you get hit by a car, but I don't want a little less. You know, that's not a risk that I will want to take in most, you know.
What do you think the biggest bottlenecks here of getting this done, like in the next 6 months?
It's not gonna get
Is
done.
it money, study plans, is it public works,
It's not gonna get
staffing? Like what can I do as an advocate to move the needle on this?
To get the study going?
Yeah. Like write my council members, like what should I do? What is the one action I can take to make sure that they know this is a priority?
I think it's just a matter of us making some phone calls and then getting a proposal, assuming that the Traffic Safety Center is willing to do this and they have the staff available to do it. And if they don't, then we need to do an RFP to go to a consultant and try to find somebody that, I want it to not necessarily have traffic engineers do this study, I want it to come from Traffic Safety Center, which is more a human factors type of analysis. Like they know about traffic safety, but they're not engineers, and then we would contract separately with engineers to evaluate their recommendations. And so they would interview the users, just like they did it the last time around. So I don't know if they're available. We haven't contacted them yet. It's just an idea we had when we met with East Bay Bicycle Coalition not too long ago. So.
I also think it's about how it's implemented, because this study happened before and some of the things got implemented and some didn't. So pressured to, once the study is done, I think advocacy about, you know, getting it.
I want this to go to the front of the line is what I'm saying. So,
yeah, it should.
Ultimately, this is life and death, you know. I don't think there's too many things that the city that are doing that I've seen that are more important than this. This is important. Sure. If someone else dies, there's going to be hell to pay. I'm sorry. It's.
Please.
Yeah, I just wanted to answer your question a little bit, Rob. Is that what Maurice is referring to when he says policy is council has to weigh all the balls, all the things that are in play, including transit, including business, including everything. So if you want to, I think that's the point at which to impact policy is to say, we believe, or I believe, that the safety of our bikes and pedestrians should take precedence over X, Y, Z. Because that's the weighting they have to do. Because there are, obviously everyone wants zero collisions and zero fatalities, but they're trying to balance everything. So that'd be my advice about how to impact change.
I'd say if the future of this intersection is going to be transit friendly, then it better get a lot more pedestrian friendly. Because transit means people.
There's going to be a new grocery store opening up this year. I mean, that's only going to add to the biking pedestrian flow, you know, from the developments on the other side of Powell. So,
right. So Marcy,
are
any motions that we make go directly to City Council now, or what?
Technically, yeah. Just if you want to make a recommendation that we move forward.
I'd like to make a motion that we tell them that we believe that the size of the intersections, both of those intersections, is the major issue here. And the double right turn lanes need to be eliminated and shorter and much safer crossings created for pedestrians. And I'd like to tell that to City Council directly.
Can we add a
I think this is enough
phase?
of a, don't you think this is enough of a statement?
I think we need a pedestrian-only phase. I think as
Well,
long as you have
if you dealt with the double right turn lanes and had shorter and much safer crossings, I think that would be included.
Tom, if I could make a comment here. So those types of suggestions are what we want to hear.
I think that's our goal.
That's your goal. I understand that. I think what we need is to get a recommendation that we appropriate funds to do a study.
Well, I have no issue with that.
And then the things that we want to look at are improving pedestrian safety at this intersection. And your ideas are going to be studied in the proposed study.
Yeah, so 30 years ago, how many lanes did we have going each way?
How many?
How many lanes did we have going each way? Christie wasn't really there. Oh, it was there.
I mean, it changed
Like on
over
Powell,
time.
on Powell, yeah. How many lanes do we have going each way on Powell Street
I mean,
30 years ago?
30 years ago, I mean,
Probably 2 lanes each way,
no,
right?
no, no.
Max.
No, it's been pretty, there's been a lot of lanes over the last 30 years. I mean,
I think there's been a lot of
it's
lanes.
shifting directions back and forth, but we've added a lane here and there, but not that many really.
And I see 5 going eastbound.
There has always been a lot of lanes going in this direction. This double left turn lane has been there. I've worked here for a long time. This double left turn lane's been here as long as I've worked here. This configuration has been here quite a while. We've modified the intersection various times because we've heard from the public that they want to make it easier to cross as a pedestrian. We've done that. I mean, we added this bike path. This bike path wasn't there 20 years ago.
So Tom, did you make a complete motion? I'm not sure.
Yeah, he did.
I thought I was.
Okay, so.
We can do that one as like a policy statement and then ask for and to make another motion. Asking for.
This asking to eliminate the double right turn lanes? Is that what your motion is?
Well, I'm saying that the double right turn lanes need to be eliminated and shorter and much safer crossings need to be created here for pedestrians.
Okay, so I don't know if that, that sounds like.
Well, we're studying this intersection. I think that's the solution here.
You'd like us to study that?
Do you want to?
I'd like to recommend that they actually eliminate an extra right turn lane in 2 of the right turn lanes. I'd actually like to.
Is that really feasible? I mean,
why not?
We'll find out.
So is there a second?
Do we have a second here?
Well, right here.
You can't second.
And I can't.
You can't actually join the discussion in this part either, technically.
So before discussion, there needs to be a second.
Well, I'll second just so we can discuss it.
Okay.
But I'm going to oppose it. Because, so here's what I want to say is I do think shorter intersections is a good idea in general, but I don't think that's going to solve the problem here at all. The person who was hit had just stepped off the curb, so it wasn't the length of the intersection that was the problem, it was the right turn motion.
Mm-hmm.
That was the problem. The unrestricted right turn motion, the fact that the curves are rounded, which leads to faster right turns, the double
And
right
they don't
turn
even stop when it's red.
Right. The fact that there's right turns on red, and so it really facilitates a movement that's very dangerous to pedestrians. So I would personally argue for taking out the I think I would argue for saying instead, take the turn lanes take out those 2 double right turn lanes, make them single, and ask for a pedestrian-only phase by button.
When the accident occurred, I know how those cars turn right.
That's actually technically a substitute motion, isn't it?
Or a friendly amendment, if you choose.
No, I think it's a substitute motion. It's probably better than mine. I'm going to withdraw my motion. You want to re-propose a motion?
Okay, so I will propose that we ask for eliminating those 2 double right turns that encroach on the crosswalk and getting a pedestrian-only phase for those by pushing a button for the crosswalk.
why don't we try just getting a pedestrian-only phase as a first step? Because if you do that, then the 2 right turns won't be stable.
Okay, and that would mandate having a lit-up sign that has no right turn?
Well, you'd have red arrows.
Yeah.
No. Are you familiar with the one that's at the grade school?
We have to study that before we do that regardless.
Right in Santa Fe?
Yeah, it's a major impact to congestion. You probably have to do an environmental impact report to kind of track
for a pedestrian-only phase.
Oh yeah,
right.
That's a major impact.
That has to happen regardless.
If you're gonna, before you could implement, it would be very significant impact to that intersection to do that. So you'd have to study it. I don't know what kind of environmental document you need to do for that, but you have to do a traffic study of some sort.
What would have a bigger impact on traffic? Eliminating the second turn lanes and shortening the distances and shrinking the intersection down and not having a pedestrian-only phase? Or having the pedestrian-only phase and leaving the intersection alone? otherwise, structurally.
Well, if you reduce the size of the length of the crosswalk, you don't need as long a
Right.
pedestrian base. So that would have to be all looked at by a study.
Is that?
So I think the first.
That's kind of the model.
Yeah, so the first step is you gotta figure out, can we afford to reduce this, the radius? Can we make it tighter? By making it tighter, you can make these crosswalks shorter, right?
You can make it tighter if you got rid of the second turn lane, probably.
Yeah.
In other words,
Yeah, because you'd be
eliminate this
eliminating
right turn lane, or?
12 feet on that side,
Well,
12
maybe-
feet on the other side.
So then there's only one instead of two.
Well, I mean, you could make,
Then you could shorten
could
it.
just get rid of this right turn, so you have 2 through lanes and 1 right lane.
Yeah.
I mean, there's different ways you can look at it, right?
Uh-huh.
Right?
Right, right.
I
So-
think
But
we want
if you
to,
didn't
There's
have
a
two
high
cars
volume,
turning,
there's a very, very high volume making this right turn.
right.
And so there's a need, in fact, reality is we need 2 throughs and 2 rights. We don't have enough space. That's what we need to keep traffic moving. Then the question is, well, could we make this 2 rights and 1 through, or just make this 2 throughs and 1 right? We could play with that with
Do
the
you need your
traffic
2
model and see what the
lefts?
impacts are. Pardon me?
Do you need your 2 left?
Definitely need 2 lefts.
if we could just keep people used to the idea that they have to stop at some point at that intersection, that would be a big step.
Yeah.
Yeah, so actually, the pedestrian-only phase thing might be our only solution as we're up against the juggernaut of 4,000-pound vehicles that want to get through town all the time.
Well, I also, I
One
like
of
the
which I
idea
have.
that Cynthia proposed of squaring those intersections, making that turn more acute and more difficult, because that will slow cars down. So because the truck that turned and hit the pedestrian, if they had been going slower, if they'd had an impediment, they might have had enough time to see the pedestrian and stop before they hit them. I'm imagining that they were revving up to get on the freeway or go wherever they were going, and in that, mode.
And because they had a green light, they weren't expecting the pedestrians to be crossing. The lanes on crossing at, from Christie onto Powell, Powell Street needs all those lanes. The cars are going so many different directions when they're on Powell Street. I don't see how that would have improved the safety of a pedestrian crossing Powell, having only 1 turn lane, to get onto the freeway or to get onto Powell
Well,
Street.
because I think that the idea is that people in the second turn lane are less likely to see the pedestrian than the people in the curved turn lane. Because there's a car between them and the pedestrian, so their sight lines aren't as
Yeah.
good.
Is there a motion on the floor?
There is,
Actually,
it
Yeah,
hasn't been seconded.
there's actually
Right,
2,
it
one that
hasn't-
got withdrawn.
Laura made her motion to ask to eliminate the 2 double right turn lanes and get a pedestrian only phase.
Now, is
And
it-
that has not been
But
seconded.
is that pedestrian only at that turn when there's a crossing? And the other crossings at the junction going in other directions would not be affected?
Well, there's only 2 crossings, so there's only one way the pedestrians can cross at each.
Okay, so we've already given up half of our freedom of movement.
Right, but it would, what I'm asking for is if a pedestrian pushes a button, there's no right turn on red during that pedestrian phase. For
Yeah.
that direction,
For that
whatever's
crossing.
happening in the
Okay.
other, the
Right.
direction that has
Okay.
the green light.
What you're talking about is stopping all traffic while you do your crossing.
No, you're only
No.
talking about stopping the traffic that's turning, really.
Right.
They can be
So-
turning up, they can be going southbound on Christie,
I
and
mean,
they can be turning left and they can go forward.
Actually,
But I
but
think
no,
what would
Maurice
happen
is
is,
right.
if you're dedicating that much time, and we could look at it in different ways, but if you're dedicating that much time for all pedestrians, then you might want to have both legs crossing at the same time.
Right.
You mean
Well,
like
you have to look- you have to-
a virtual scramble?
Yeah, but scramble means you can cross diagonally. We wouldn't propose that because it's a much longer way to cross.
Yeah, it's a pretty
Because
long
for-
diagonal.
But you don't need that with every,
So I think, you could look at it, well.
Yeah, if it's only when somebody
pedestrian
presses a
this way,
button.
Pedestrian that way, because if you have somebody press the button for this one and then that one, it really adds to your cycle lane. So you probably
You might-
find that they'd both be crossing at the same time, which means nobody can move through the intersection.
Well, except that I think a lot of people cross to go to that shopping mall, so they wouldn't be crossing both crosswalks. But I think there is one thing that if you're crossing Powell Street there, you would have to stop both right turn movements, both right turns on red, both the people who are making a right on red and the people who would be making a right on green. And so I think that would, you would. end
Yeah,
up
you have to stop the
stopping.
right turn. during-
So you would, for people crossing Christie Street, you would only need to stop the right turns going on Powell Street, and the people on Christie would already have a.
So, but as a pedestrian, let's say you're trying to get to this point, you press the button, you cross it here, then you press this button, and you go to here. So it's a lot of time on that one phase.
Right.
And so it's going to be,
But you're alive.
we can look at it and we can report back at what the impact is.
Yeah.
Nobody does that. They're crossing one or crossing the other. I mean,
Usually,
yeah. I mean, they would be going a different way.
Okay, so are we going to modify our motion, or what should we do here?
Haven't seconded yet.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Seconded, then it dies.
your motion is to eliminate the double right turn lanes and install a pedestrian-only phase.
Yeah, to recommend that to council, that we think that's.
Okay, how about we,
Among other.
I'd like a substitute motion that we
Okay.
ask that they install a pedestrian-only phase for right turns eastbound on Powell at Christie and southbound at Christie and Powell.
Okay,
Okay,
I'll second
support
that.
Yeah.
Can you, sorry.
Keep it
You're going to
simple.
second my motion, counter yours?
I will, I think you're right, keep it simple.
So
And
the
other things are
substitute
great.
motion gets voted on first, right?
Well,
Right.
and the other motion never
Yes.
got a second, so it's not really on the table.
It didn't get a second? Okay.
Can you repeat it, please?
That we ask that they install a pedestrian-only phase for right turns eastbound Powell at Christie and southbound Christie at Powell. So those are the only two crosswalks that we
Got
have
it.
there. Is there a second?
Yeah,
Second.
seconded.
Okay. Do we want further discussion on this, folks?
So the limiting the second right turn lane is out.
We're just keeping it simple with.
Let's
the
see what
pedestrian
happens
phase
at
for
this
now.
point.
That's
And
what-
then we can fight to get rid of lanes
So-
3 years from now.
So the recommendations that you're making here are fine, are great. But we need to have a study to be able to do it.
We
So
can do it.
Can I
We can-
suggest that you
That'll
do
be
a
the next-
We can do a second motion that recommends the study. But I'd like to do this at this point, because I think that, without the study, we all have experience at this intersection, and we think that our practical experience, and for some of us, years on the committee, dictate that this might be a solution that will, save a couple of lives every few years.
What would be the harm in trying it rather than wasting all the time with a study?
We have to determine what the impacts are. This is a very significant timing change that would affect the whole corridor. So you've got to look at it holistically. It's not just one intersection, it's connected to all the other intersections along the corridor.
Okay, so if you implement it, you discover right away what the impact is. It isn't going to be devastating, it just might take a little more time, but it's not going to be crucial. I mean, it's not going to be, I just don't think it would be that difficult to implement and then try to, then
Yeah,
find
I'd
out.
like to vote on this recommendation.
Did you want to say something about it?
Anything more?
No, I was ready to vote on it and then move forward with the next motion.
Yeah, and then we'll ask for the study on the next one. So all in favor of this motion here? 205, is that 6 or is that 7 of us? 7-0. Okay, and so now we need our next motion to,
Okay, so I want to
maybe a little guidance from Maurice on how to word it would help us.
So I would suggest that we,
The UC6.
we get a recommend to the city council that we do an update to the traffic safety center study that was done for all pedestrian safety at the intersections near Powell and Christie.
I mean, it's
And
amazing
to
how things have
appropriate,
changed in
and to
11
appropriate
years.
funds to do that stuff.
I would add something about what you had mentioned about how the goal of the study is to make this a great corridor for people walking and biking.
What's the name of that? Okay. Can I make
But
a motion?
it doesn't have to be them. If they aren't available, the city can look to other consultants.
Okay, so I want to make a motion to request that council allocate funding for a traffic study to be conducted in an effort to improve pedestrian and bicycle safety at the Powell Street and Christie intersection.
Second?
Can I make a suggestion, Miguel?
Yes.
You want to incorporate what Cynthia said, is to make it rather than saying improve, because we can improve it a little and then still be
Yes,
crappy.
I want it to be the top priority, so that's,
So can you say, what did you say,
You could say
Cynthia?
like to transform Powell corridor into,
So
Great.
where I said to improve, can you cut that, Marcy?
Mhm.
And say to create a like bicycle and like the
First class.
to create a first class intersection that makes bicycling and pedestrian the top part.
It's not one intersection, it's a corridor, right? 'Cause we're
Corridor.
talking about
Well, this
bikes
study-
and-
Talking about the
The
highway.
study is for the for the corridor.
This study looked at the entire corridor.
Yeah, it went
Okay.
from the other side of frontage all the way up to.
Yeah, that's what this study
yeah.
did.
So also that off ramp, on ramp.
Yes, we look at all.
So the study to identify ways to make this corridor
Great,
the
great walking.
The utopia we'd like it to be.
No, let's not use the word utopia.
Um,
but a great walking corridor. Is that what you said?
a s-
If I could make a comment.
Yeah.
So what we had talked about was trying to figure out what the effectiveness of the improvements are that were recommended by the original study, and what further improvements we can make now that we've seen the effectiveness of these existing improvements. What further improvements can we make to the intersections that are now allowable under the NACDOT design guidelines that weren't in place at the time we did it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it really feels like 2005 is a long time ago for that.
Yeah, it's almost-
over
I
10
mean,
years.
how things have changed in that much time.
There's some new ideas out there.
Yeah.
How do we make the pedestrian button more effective? Like, it happens soon rather than later?
I guess I just feel like we have a study of how effective it is because people here have walked there since 2010 and can tell you that.
Yeah, but it's
you
not
know,
in
and
writing.
driven there and not seen the sign.
It'd be better to have a
Yeah,
document.
we want to be able to interview the users and get the issues out there, and then figure out a game plan for the next.
We've made our
phase.
first recommendation, which is to save people in the crosswalks.
I guess I just want to, I think doing a study, it sounds like that's something that has to happen to make significant changes, and I'm all for doing that, but I don't think it's really worth spending a lot of time or money studying what's there now, because I think we have a whole room full of people who are telling you what's going on there now. It does not reach that threshold, and it doesn't even get near that threshold where pedestrians are safe. We have evidence that it's not safe. So I think it's, leave what's there now. I'm not saying take it away. If it does some good, fabulous. But I don't know. I mean, it doesn't seem like it was just, we're talking about 2 signs, right? That got installed because of, and a few other.
There's $500,000 worth of improvements.
Okay, so there were other improvements.
There's a lot of
but
improvements that were made.
Yeah, the cut-off crosswalk that's on the
Right.
frontage road and all that
The
type of
crosswalk
stuff.
is a little shorter
It's a lot
and stuff.
different on that side.
Right, but I don't know if.
I think that was successful
I
on
would
that
be
side.
more interested in studying what we can do in the future than the effectiveness
Right.
of what's there now. Because we know it's not enough. I mean, I'm sure it's better than nothing, but if we know it's not enough.
Ma'am?
One of the suggestions that Bicycle-Pedestrian had was to add a class 4 path, so protected bike lane all along Powell, kind of in parallel with where the class 1 path is.
On the street?
On the street, yes. Taking out the rightmost lane if you're going eastbound. So it could be something like that. It's like that this, you would like to study and design a transformation of the Powell corridor for, to improve the experience and walkability. That you're looking for something that will make it shovel ready, because you're now, you can apply for HSIP grants now that somebody has died. Congratulations. So let's study something to seek out federal funds to make, to completely transform this, to make it amazing connection to the Bay Trail. I mean, right now with Christie Avenue, like you now have this like nice class 4 path, and it connects to that.
Yeah, I agree.
One thing I think would make that intersection more friendly, if you're traveling west on Powell Street and you want to go to San Francisco, you should be able to turn left on the San Francisco only lane. You shouldn't have to put all that traffic on one on-ramp. It would separate the traffic. If you're going left, you get on the San Francisco lane. You're going somewhere else, you get on the right lane. That would take a lot of traffic out of the right lane.
Right, but then it would make it more dangerous for pedestrians on that intersection. So if
I always go through and do the U-turn.
Yeah, that's what everybody does. There's 500 cars an hour do that.
One of the improvements that came out of the study that we did,
Not that
the last study, this crosswalk used to go straight to here and then to here. And we were able to put it diagonally this way. And if you were to allow this move, you couldn't have this crosswalk. So, so this has been a really good improvement. We also put in a cross, a traffic signal for this way.
Yeah, and that is a definite improvement. That's made that much safer, but before you get there from where I live, which is on the other side.
So I'm hearing.
Yeah, you're taking your life into your hand just to get there.
Yeah, and that freeway on
about this one, and I'm hearing we have fixes for this one right now that Caltrans have proposed. So we need to go back. We need to revisit this intersection. We need to see what can we do here.
Maurice, could you go back to the freeway on-ramp? There actually is an all red for that, because when cars are coming off the off-ramp and then getting back onto the on-ramp illegally, if they were stopped from doing that, really all they have the right to do legally is turn left and turn right. When those cars are coming off the off-ramp and turning left and right, cars in all of the directions have red. So that effectively is an all red for a pedestrian crossing that on-ramp.
Are you talking about here?
Denny's? The one at
No,
Denny's.
on the north side.
The one at Denny's.
Oh, you're saying that when
Except
cars
for the
coming off
jumpers.
the off-ramp are turning right and left, all the other cars
Everybody
are
else
stopped.
making any turn in any direction or going forward
Has a red light.
has a red light.
So that should be when the
So
pedestrian phase happens.
that's when I cross. when
Oh,
I'm there.
even, so the pedestrian phase should be
So when this,
coincide with that instead of with the
right
green
now,
light for cars.
right now the pedestrian light for this crossing comes on with the green light for the through move. It comes on automatically. I don't even think you need to press the button. I think the way they've got it set up.
So,
This pedestrian phase for crossing from Denny's over to underneath,
yeah,
this comes on when the westbound direction has a green light.
has a green light and the cars in a dedicated turn lane are just going and not expecting the pedestrian.
Well, the turn lane onto the ramp wouldn't be at the same time.
No, the turn lane, the one you just showed
The
is
right
going to be
turn.
red.
Oh, this right turn on red.
But
Yeah,
no.
this is the
No,
problem.
right turn on green.
Right turn on green.
So where's
Yes,
Denny's?
so
I'm looking at-
these cars making the right turn, that's the problem.
Denny's is where it says sign in, right?
So I think what Celeste is saying is
I'm
that
saying that
instead of putting that pedestrian walk phase with the green light there, put it
Put it
with the red light.
Put it with the red light.
Because
With the red light
It's
for.
basically-
for
it's
cars
all-
that are westbound. Because then they'll have to stop before they turn right. In theory, I know that people
No,
don't
they
always
do.
do that.
Most cars do. I
Yeah,
mean, at least
so they
show
would
that.
have a red, because there should be no cars going straight, and especially
But
once.
these cars have a red light when the cars from under the on-ramp are making a left.
They
turn
both
on.
have a red light. At that time, they both have a red light.
No, when the cars are,
When the people coming off the
No.
off-ramp have that,
When the people.
they're right and left, then she's saying that these people do
Everybody else
not.
is red.
right, but then they're gonna want to be able to allow a CHP officer to get off, and get it straight back on.
Well-
And
Well,
if you,
so
they're
they'll-
gonna want that. I can tell you right now.
No,
Catherine's
that's
gonna want-
fine, but if I'm a pedestrian, I can see somebody who's behaving as a CHP officer.
Right, if there's
But
one.
motorists aren't
CHP
allowed to do that, so,
Yeah,
or
motor-
won't be.
Yeah,
Right.
no, but it's, I find it's the
Well,
only.
anyway,
They're not
we
allowed
don't
to do it
control that
now.
intersection. We could propose it to Caltrans and see what they say. That's not.
They're not allowed to
So
do it
you
now.
can't change the walk
That's a
signal?
Caltrans
We
thing.
can't, that's all Caltrans.
So we need to contact Caltrans and ask.
Okay.
So let's go back to
Yes.
Miguel's
Um,
motion.
So we're looking at, can you tell me where I left off?
Request council allocate funds for a traffic study 2.
Okay, for a traffic study on how to make the Powell-Christie corridor a world-class experience for bicyclists and pedestrians.
Yeah, screw the cars.
Real quick,
That's safe.
is world-class defined?
I was trying to find
No,
that.
he's
Yeah,
just,
we want it
It's
to
a
be
visionary
like, better than
statement.
anything else, anywhere in the region. We want it to be,
well, that wouldn't
Yeah.
take much. Oh, no, it would.
And you don't want to define what that means.
Well,
I was
you
trying
would-
to, but my Wi-Fi is not working.
Okay. You could say comfortable and safe experience.
Yes,
Yeah.
I would add the word safe.
I
in
think
there.
the word
That's
safe
fine.
would be an
I'll accept
important
that
thing
for
to
the
have in there.
amendment, yeah.
No, you get to change it.
Okay. So instead of world-class,
I'm not gonna rewrite
comfortable
yours.
and safety, and
Right.
safer.
Safe.
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 World class is among the best, of or among the best in the world. I don't know if we're gonna get there, but I would settle for safe.
Okay, so how to make Powell Christie corridor a comfortable and safe experience for bicyclists and pedestrians.
That was the end of the motion?
Yeah.
And the beginning of the motion is asking for the study.
Request council allocate
Yeah.
funds for a traffic study 2.
Yeah.
Or let's see, I'll figure out the verb, but how to make Powell Christie corridor
Comfortable and
a
safe.
comfortable and safe experience for bicyclists and pedestrians.
Or
Can
just
I
safe
ask a
if you
question
want to
about that? Is there a way that, and I don't know too much about this, but where we could reference what happened as being a trigger so that it's on record?
They know.
Well, I know, but it's on record, right? Maybe being a trigger of like, you know, in lieu of recent events, we find this really, I don't know.
Yeah, to prevent
Just to
future,
prevent future.
future pedestrians.
Do you want to make that friendly amendment?
Yeah. I think we need a second first. I'll second.
Thank you.
Any discussion, or do we want to vote on it? Do you want to
Well,
add
did you
to
want to
it?
make a
What-
friendly amendment?
Sure, I'd like to make a friendly amendment, just that we had something about what happened so that it's, you know, a little bit stronger worded, maybe.
In light of recent events?
Yeah, in light of tragic recent events. something
I
like
also
that.
want to say that the recent accident was maybe the worst, but there is a long history of bicyclists and pedestrians being hit in this corridor. And this was, we had someone at our meeting a couple of months ago who was a bike shop
Really
owner,
well.
who is partially disabled now. And she's a huge, horrible accident.
Wasn't the officer
Okay.
saying that?
So something to
Yeah,
make
the
it sound more
officers-
serious.
In light of recent events and continual feedback from the local community?
Don't make it too long.
Well, just.
They won't
I
listen.
was-
They won't read it.
I think in light of tragic recent events is, you know, it is fine, but I just want to point out it's not a new problem.
And ongoing,
Ongoing
Ongoing
issues.
danger.
Do you want to say in light of recent collisions, or you just want?
I just wanted something that referred to the fact that there's a triggering event here that we want to be taken seriously because it's really sad.
How about in light of a long history of problems or something like that?
I like that.
That's
And
great.
the
That's
tragic,
great.
and the tragic recent events.
And the
There you
tragic
go.
issue, that, yeah.
Now that's both in. Sorry, Mark.
Can you read what you wrote?
Not quite. In light of a long history of
Tragic events.
Problems.
Long history.
Or maybe
of
just due to.
And tragic recent events.
and tragic recent events. Okay. All right. Nothing now is when the vice chair might call a vote.
okay.
And I'm not, I'm assuming Tom will vote, you wanna wait?
Do we have quorum with
Yeah.
Tom?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to move forward with the vote.
Okay.
Okay, raise your hands if you say yes, right?
Oh, all those in favor? All right,
Unanimous.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6
Okay.
in favor. All those opposed? All right. Motion passes.
Got audience, people want to speak?
We have Rob.
Yeah, the one thing that I didn't hear get brought up that I want to throw out there is EPD's role in this. Dietz Levy was at the last meeting saying that they didn't have the resources, to really control this area. So I don't know if that could be another ask from council to allocate more resources, but they're talking about having a decoy car there or something. But there seems to be a consensus that a lot of people make a right turn on red illegally, without stopping. So I don't know. From my experience in my 13 years of Emeryville, people kind of drive like jackasses because you rarely get pulled over here. I've never been pulled over here in 13 years.
So we had a red light running camera for years.
Yeah.
At Powell and
And that
Christie,
was
not
very
at the
effective.
Alpha.
Very, very, very effective. But they ended up pulling them all out within the city. because they were spending more time on the legal than the revenue they were bringing in.
They caught me once incorrectly.
Yeah, me too.
Rob, it's very difficult to tell the police department what to do because they want to decide what to do with the resources. Then you get like Oakland and Berkeley telling the police department what to do, and that becomes a problem.
Rob, I did see a decoy car at near the off-ramp there. And at the time that the decoy car was there, there were no cars going straight through. So I don't remember how long it was there for, but I noticed it was right after that meeting. I did see the car there.
That's the
In
off
late
ramp.
November,
Yeah, he told us that they did
there was
that.
a car parked there for a couple of days, and I didn't see it any more after that. We have another hand back there.
So a couple questions. One, is the study that you keep referencing, is that available to the public online anywhere?
It's not online right now, but we could definitely,
Okay.
Try to make that
And the
available.
second question, you indicated that you did $500,000 in improvements, and I
Right.
understand that. Does the actual study show which improvements were implemented and which ones are still outstanding?
I think the study just made recommendations, right?
Study was before.
The study, just listen to a lot of, the recommendations you came up with here, there was just a lot of them thrown out there, ideas.
Okay.
And then we sifted through them to figure out which ones we are able to do. And so I don't know if it's written in this study as to what the actual improvements are, but we have the improvement plans that are actually in this study right here that defines the scope of work for what it is we were building.
I remember a median with trees and stuff, is that part of this study?
That's the urban design.
That was what was part of the land
That was-
acquisition.
We would have to go back probably to the staff reports that
So that's
include
not part of
the
this
plans and specs that
They're different.
summarize all the various improvements that we did.
Yeah, urban
So is it
design
possible to get a copy of the
plans
study?
out to them.
Yeah, we can make it available. I don't have an extra copy here, but we can.
No, that's fine.
I have a quick question, Maurice. It sounded like there were some things that you could do, like in the immediate, like, so like without a traffic study, that you could do to improve the intersection?
Like the yellow
Yeah.
arrow, yeah, maybe we should.
Well, we're
should
we're gonna start
recommend that.
investigating that to see if that's something that's really doable. And then, but this study would, if we could do anything simplistically, we would definitely approach that. Like we were talking at one point, putting those paddles out that say yield to pedestrians to give a little bit more visibility to.
Although I can just tell you, I think there's more traffic than there was, there's more people around, but I live a few blocks from there, and crossing Powell at Doyle Street, which used to be not that bad, nobody stops for pedestrians. There are paddles and nobody stops.
Right,
It's
well, we have a
unbelievable.
traffic signal going in there. We've got.
I know, someday that'll happen. but-
It's under design right now.
So I guess what I'm asking for is more like a comprehensive list of like the Caltrans put together that shows like what you can do before the study happens, and whether you're working on that now and whether it's realistic for us to have it.
Yeah, so we don't really have any, other than that flashing yellow, we don't have any other bright ideas for it. And that's what we want to engage some of the people.
Well, I would say if we don't have any other ideas, then we need to put like hazard warning signs for pedestrians.
I think the pedestrian phase is the way to do it.
This
for
last
now.
accident, I believe both the victim and the driver were from out of town, so they were not expecting that it was such a hazardous crossing that to be made. So I think if we don't have anything better to do immediately, and we have to live with what is, then I think we need hazard warning signs for pedestrians.
So aren't we going to ask the council to do a pedestrian-only
More
phase
signs
like
on the
right
side of
away?
the road to
You know,
distract
hazard, do not
everybody.
cross,
Yeah.
danger.
Well, and I want to
People
say,
have died here.
if the paddles go in the center of the street, I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is at the corners with the turning motions. I think that's the major, I mean, not that there's no problem there, but the major hazard seems to be the turning motion.
So do we have a motion we're actually going to vote on here? We're well past our 60 minutes.
Oh, well, I
Have
say,
that.
I'll make a motion.
Right
I want to
on.
move that the city implement a flashing yellow arrow at these two, at the southbound Christie.
We've already recommended that they put a pedestrian-only phase.
I'm gonna,
No, it's a separate.
I want to recommend
This
this.
is a shorter term.
Yeah, the pedestrian only phase isn't gonna happen right away.
Well, that's the wrong
Why go
attitude.
halfway?
Let's try.
Because
wanna
you can do
recommend
something
We need
quicker
something
than
right away. We
wait.
need something immediately.
Yeah, the short-term, long-term.
But what about the other one that we were working on when I went?
We voted on it, it passed.
It passed?
Yeah.
You
I
didn't
took
let me
my
vote?
vice chair
You can vote now
responsibility.
if you want.
Okay, fine.
Do you want to add your vote? I can
I voted for it.
Okay, all right.
But
I
I want
was
to make a
going out, I
motion
was
that
gonna
the
say
city
that.
look at short-term fix improvements and implement short-term improvements, including but not limited to flashing yellow arrows at these two, at eastbound Powell and southbound Christie.
So you say, as an interim move.
As an interim move, yes. Start with
Okay.
as an interim move.
I'll second that. We have more discussion on that or not? Shall we vote? All in favor? It's like another 7-0.
As far as working with Caltrans on the freeway on-ramp and changing when the walk signal comes on, how do we do that?
I think we engage in the same person.
Sergio?
Yeah, Sergio, you want to start talking to him?
Yeah.
So who's going to do that and what can we do that?
We're having a dialogue with him right now, we can bring it
Yeah,
up.
I didn't hear your question, I was writing, sorry.
Yeah, it's just changing when the walk sign comes on when you're crossing the freeway on-ramp, so that it comes on when everybody else has a red.
Okay.
So it comes out a different part of the
It
phase.
comes on the same part of the face.
Are we done with this discussion at this point or not?
Can I ask a quick question?
Go ahead.
Maurice, when they did the previous study, this is kind of hard to do, but did they question or interview any of the drivers who regularly go through that area?
I would have to go back. I don't know if they did or not.
Okay.
I know they did.
I know.
They may have. Let me see the study real quick. It might be able to.
While you were looking, the reason I'm bringing that up is I liked a lot of what I heard from Celeste earlier about the drivers and their behavior and what they have to go through when they go through that intersection. I've lived in an area for about 15 years, and I've gone through that intersection regularly. It is very chaotic. There's a lot of input that you're trying to perceive, and they're coming off the freeway going super fast and aggressive, and that aggressiveness takes a while to dissipate as you come off that roadway there. Really, the things that seem like that will help here is making changes that really target the behaviors that are creating that type of driving. So trying to understand what drivers are experiencing and what the current installments of what's in there to even see if they perceive that. You know, there's so much going on there. It's such a big zone with a lot of things happening. You know, it'd be curious to see if the flashing lights, do they see that? Do they see the pedestrian crossing signs? What will it take for them to be able to slow down and be able to see something that says that you need to be cautious here?
Right. So they looked at collision data, they did vehicle counts, they did community forums.
Okay.
They did pedestrian and bicyclist surveys of over 155 cyclists or pedestrians. And they did field observations, so they watched the vehicle, pedestrian, and bicycle behavior and interactions at each intersection were collected.
And they got credit for it too, right? And weren't they students that did most of
No,
this?
this was professors and head of the department.
I bet.
Yeah. And they had field inspections as well.
There was a traffic change that happened after that report was done, and that's the fact that if you're coming north on Shellman and you want to turn onto Powell, you have to do that long roundabout, and because of the striping, it's terribly confusing to a driver that's new. So you're coming north on Shellman, you turn onto whatever that's
Shellman Way.
Shellman Way, and then you have to get in the correct lane for that,
Right.
and which you don't know which is the correct lane because you don't know what lies ahead.
Right.
And then you turn left onto Christie, and again you have to negotiate what lane you should be in, which takes a long time to figure out.
Yeah.
And then you get into it, and then you make your right turn.
Yeah.
And by the time you do that, you're busy.
Yeah.
And if a pedestrian happens to get in your way, you know.
That's the configuration that
Well
they studied. That was already there in 2005. So that configuration was already there. That's what they will say.
That's a really good point.
It's true.
But that really adds to the hazard to the, when you're making the right turn.
So, I mean, everything you're talking about today is mentioned in this report.
Okay.
The double right turns, the vehicle speeds, the long crossings, poor crosswalk visibility, poor connectivity, lack of wayfinding signage. So this all came up.
Right. I think the main question I'm throwing out there is just that this group as a whole is very bike ped oriented. So I think this group's really good at putting themselves in that shoes. but the other, part of this recipe
Motorists,
is
yeah.
the motorists.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to engage them and really to find out what's working for them. Are they even perceiving, and is any of this stuff registering with them? And, just to understand them and their behavior a little
Right, so
bit
maybe
more.
the next study could include interviewing motorists.
They did have community
That's
forums.
what
Well,
I'm
and
trying to
observing their motions and stuff. In other words, if the car, does what they're supposed to do, I mean, I guess you could say, well, did you do that because you saw that sign back there?
Yeah.
But observing what their motions are, in theory, would give you some of those answers, but.
Yeah.
I wonder if the city could do a survey of residents, because the residents who drive through there,
Yeah.
most of them.
I mean, it could be as
Some
simple
point.
as, have you even seen the caution, look for pedestrian sign
Right, are you
on the
aware
freeway?
of this?
Are you
Did you know what the flashing light means?
Right.
But like I
And I'll
said, they
tell
did,
you that people
Right.
I know who drive do not like to drive through that intersection either. It's not a fun intersection.
they did have community forums where drivers were present, because I went to a couple of them, so they did talk to drivers.
And they'll say, screw you, I'm trying to get to Vacaville. Are we done with this?
I just want to ask one more
point?
question about the motion that we just made to do interim things. Is there an option, because another thing that might be relatively inexpensive and quick would be some signage at those turn points, like right out at the edge of the sidewalk, is that possible?
Probably hide the pedestrians.
There's so many signs here that,
And signs are easy, right?
Yeah, I mean,
The
I don't
question,
know.
people don't realize it. I mean, there are signs. I mean, if you look at. Go back here.
I think it's
What's that one
saturated.
say right
Oh, okay, so there is one already.
there?
Okay,
Something to see.
all right, it's already there.
Right, it's already there.
Even though it's already encoded in state law, you still have to tell them.
Maybe it's because they don't look like that guy. They don't.
Doesn't have his school books. Please.
I have a
What about the
question.
crosswalks that flash? I've seen those in places, the crosswalk itself is flashing.
Oh, yeah.
The crosswalks, the two crosswalks that flash that I'm most
You're
conversant
not allowed to
with,
mix those
there's
with
never
the-
anybody in those
No,
crosswalks
those are
when
only
they're
for
flashing.
hawks.
They're not for signalized intersection.
But we're talking about when the walk cycle's on, you'd have a flashing yellow arrow going at the same time.
I think that would be an improvement.
I have a question in regards to working with Caltrans.
Yes.
Especially on the work from the on-ramp and off-ramp at 80 and Powell. Caltrans loves official things, official requests, official reports, et cetera. I don't know, maybe Maurice, do you know if it would be helpful if the BPAC officially sent a response to Caltrans in regards to the improvements that they're planning, saying, yes, we fully support this, we fully support your idea of the no right turn on red, et cetera. Please move this
Well, I mean,
to the top of your list.
it doesn't hurt to send them a letter and say, yeah, we're very thankful that you're moving forward with these improvements. We could draft something if you want.
Is it possible?
Yeah.
Are we allowed to do that as a BPAC?
Are we allowed to do that as a BPAC?
See why not?
And sign, we could do a sign-on letter and everybody would sign.
No, I'm the one that gets to sign.
Oh, you would sign it as a chair?
I've signed a couple of them in the last few years.
Have you? Okay.
So I don't know.
Somebody else always
exactly-
writes them.
I'm not that familiar with doing that. I don't know if you want to all have your actual
But I think
signatures on it, or
We were
just-
talking about wanting this to move as high in the queue as possible, and that might be a good thing to write up a letter and say, thank you so much for coming and listening to our suggestions and adopting some great ideas, please.
All right.
Do you,
Because there's a real safety.
Do you think more than
You're gonna
email, like the
draft two
actual
paragraphs and
paper?
send it to me, and I'll send it to Marcy. We'll send it to.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Yes.
Okay, we need to move on.
We'll
We need to
PDF
move
it.
on to our next item.
Are you guys gonna write it, or do you want me to draft it?
I just asked you to draft two small
I'll
paragraphs.
do it.
The boss spoke.
Short and
Okay,
simple.
I'll do it, I'll send it to you, Tom, I'm making myself a note.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on from Powell Street improvements discussion and go back to the approval of the November 7th minutes, which are apparently attached.
On the back of your agendas,
That was before the election. I don't remember anything before the election.
Can I make a movement to approve the minutes?
Move approval? Since we're disintegrating here, move approval?
Okay.
Approval by acclaim.
Is?
All right, we're gonna move on. Do we have a planning department report or not?
I do.
So my extensive report is
Did
that
we scare everybody away?
you said planning.
Well, I think everyone came for the other agenda.
I know that.
Because the holidays, I don't have any planning updates, but if you have any questions, here I am.
How do you spell Navarre?
Navare, you just don't pronounce the last two letters.
Oh, okay.
Do you have any other questions?
Yeah.
I was
That
gonna
was
ask.
good.
that.
Good question, good question, yeah.
And do we have any public works projects report or not?
Just, just getting back to planning, because
Yes.
we have monthly meetings now.
Okay.
I don't know if there'll be something in February, if you have any thoughts on that?
There may be in February and March, but I don't have that confirmed at this time.
Okay.
So I'm going to get back to you about
So,
that.
clarification, are we having monthly meetings?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I did not hear this.
Yeah.
All right,
I
awesome.
tried to mention that in a couple different places.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed it.
I'm not sure.
Right, so BPAC project tracking list for Mike and Nancy to make their report, and I think there's extras of these.
I'm not sure that the progress has changed much on these.
Greenway Crossing, the big change,
Oh, okay.
and Court Street.
All right.
2019.
Yeah, but we got the funding, I mean, that's pretty.
That's true, it's better than never.
When is that pedestrian bridge gonna be built over?
But that's just, is the MTC grant to implement it or to study?
It's to implement,
Oh, awesome.
yeah.
Oh,
There's some money
okay.
for design, but most of it's for implementation.
Oh, fantastic. This is for the green.
The Greenway crossing,
Awesome.
where?
At
65th,
67th.
Ah.
Okay, so the Horton Street, the traffic calming is actually getting down to the speed limit I'd love to see posted on that road.
It is 15 now.
Which is 18.
It's 15.
Oh, what is it?
Well, I
It
go
is
there-
now.
Speed limit's 15?
I go
No,
there all the
because you
time.
can run faster than 15.
But it's 15,
18
that's
is
what it
reasonable.
is now.
For the bumps, it's posted at 50.
Is it posted at 15? But it's not enforceable, right?
You can't go faster with the speed bump there.
Where is it posted at 15? On Important
The
Street?
speed bump between 45th and 53rd.
Are there signs that say go 15?
I don't.
Posted it, I mean, yeah,
I
there's a
think
yellow
it's
sign that says 15 miles an hour.
Oh, awesome.
With the
There's a
speed
electric-
bump
There's
sign.
an electric
right?
sign there every
But,
time you go
uh,
over 15 and 20.
Okay, but the traffic counts aren't down because there was a huge line of vehicles going northward as I came
It's
down.
holiday time, that's why.
We have trouble with unfortunately, cars are going so slowly now that they're being double counted.
Really?
Yeah.
And
So
you're
Oh,
seeing
that's
double.
really gonna get Brian.
It looked like the traffic doubled, from the beginning of November to the end. And when I contacted the sign company, they said, yeah, that can happen. So, I don't know, I think we're gonna have to do a kind of ground truthing, maybe with tubes at some point, to compare what the sign is reading with what's really happening and check that way. But you can tell, just anecdotally, that people are going much more slowly, and if that hasn't had the effect of dissuading some people yet, I think it will.
I think.
How about a class action suit against Waze?
I think there's less traffic, a little bit, not a ton, and I do think that people sometimes go 15 miles over the speed bump and then try to accelerate to 30 before the next speed bump. But I think that's a habit.
It's kind of hard. There's 3 of them in a very short period of time.
So it seems kind of insane to me, but whatever. But yeah, I feel much safer as a bicyclist here. I feel like it really has changed behavior. And I will say, a little personal note, that when I come northbound and people are avoiding the highway and they're coming on north, instead of feeling resentful, I just laugh to myself because I know what they're about to face. And they don't. Like, okay, you'll find out. You're going to learn.
That's schadenfreude.
Yes, it is a little bit. Like, no, I just sort of feel like this is their learning experience and they'll never do it again.
Yeah. So
right, any other questions on these?
Yeah, the South Bayfront Bridge, where's that at?
We're moving forward with negotiations with the railroad. We have an agreement draft from them, so we're trying to square that away. We're in the process of turning in our PUC permit application now that the railroad won't challenge it, so that's underway. Our design, the plans are being reviewed by the building division right now. They're just about ready. I'm hoping if all goes well, we'll be able to award a construction contract by the end of the year, like October.
How long does the rail traffic have to stop in order to put the bridge up?
You only get like 6 hours or 8 hours?
We're negotiating that right now. Last time we were negotiating, they were going to give us up to 4 hours of time where there's no trains. So, you know, it takes time to take the bridge and move it into position. Maybe one track is working at that point. But then we have to shut down all tracks where we hoist the bridge into position.
Okay.
Big challenge.
You should organize a watch party.
Yeah, that would be. Can I just step back to the Horton Street traffic calming and just say that it's so simple and it works so well, and I would love to have a discussion in the near future about some other places in Emeryville, like my street, where we might want to have some speed
So
bumps.
maybe I can report back. You know, with the Sherwin-Williams project, they're going to be required to put the permanent measures in on Horton.
And then
But also on 53rd Street and on 45th Street, on those bicycle. So those are other ones that we're looking at.
Getting speed humps.
Well, speed humps, or it might be chicanes or some other
Traffic calming.
traffic calming measure.
There needs
But-
to be
but those
an
are-
actual no going north at 40 is actually.
That's in the plan as well, yes.
Yeah, I wanna
Well,
ask
once
the-
that happens, then the commute route is eliminated.
That
wanna
probably
ask-
won't happen until the very last building is completed at Sherwin-Williams, so all the construction traffic does not have to go through the neighborhood. It'll just, you know, we don't want to change the traffic patterns now before Sherwin-Williams is built. It's going to come after. They have to build a traffic signal at Hollis and 45th. And they've got to do some work on 40th on the left turn pocket going from eastbound 40th onto Hollis, because all the traffic would be going around to Hollis. So we've got to make sure that those.
That's where it belongs.
You
Right, but the left turn pocket's not long enough to accommodate all the traffic right now.
know, those signs in the Park Avenue District that say no turns, I mean, it doesn't, I know there's a picture of a truck there, but I don't know, maybe I don't get it, but it just says no turns, and it doesn't seem.
The trucks can't make those turns because of the bulb arms.
Right, but I don't know how easily, I've never seen that sign
Why do
anywhere
they need a
else.
sign?
You have a truck there, and then it says no turns, and it's like, as if you're not supposed to make any turns,
I
anybody.
think it says use Hollis. It says no
It's
turn, use
It's only for
Hollis.
trucks.
Trucks, no
Yeah.
turns.
Yeah, but I'm not sure how clear that is. There's a picture of a truck
Yeah.
there, but it's not like a internationally recognized sign. It's like a new local sign that nobody knows, so.
Anything else on?
I think mine is probably more of a public works comment or question. And maybe if we can look at the Shell Mound for a little further up. There's a space that keeps getting it's been flooded for like a month now. It's like right behind it's on Shell Mound, behind the Bay Street, and then in between Bay Street and the what's
By the exit of
the
the
mattress
South Street
store.
Plaza.
Yeah,
The rear
right after you
exit,
pass
rear
Burger King.
You mean the
Oh,
back
on
route
Shell
that
Mound,
Maurice
yeah.
takes?
On
or is
Shell
by-
Right there, right there.
So there's a
Right
portion
there.
right there that's been flooded for like a month now, and like I
Flooded?
kind of waited for it to like maybe dry out, but it just doesn't seem to, and it's blocking the bike lane there, so it makes the bike like anybody that's using that lane have to go out into traffic.
Are you talking about Christie and Shell?
No, it's on Shell Mound.
Is it south of Christie or north of Christie?
It's
right-
south of
It's
Christie.
right in this gutter pan.
By the hotel?
What is it? What is it?
That's a
Yeah.
technical
The
term, gutter
is
pan.
low and it puddles water.
And it's been like that for a long time, and
There's no drain there anymore?
No,
There's water, I've seen water in there during the summertime.
I waited for like a couple weeks of dry. Like, we haven't really had a lot of dry. Like I was like, okay, maybe it stopped raining.
Is there some leaky
But even like in
irrigation
the breaks of the rain, it still continues to be just like a puddle of water that stretches across the bike lane. And so it's dangerous.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if anybody knew about that, but it's something that like I've had to avoid every time I pass that.
C-click fix.
Okay.
It's a differential zone.
Yeah.
It goes to our public works crew.
I took a picture a while back and I keep saying I'm gonna post it, and then I'm here, so this is the
Yeah.
first time I'm telling you guys about it.
And then Maurice, I've been using a wheelchair to get around sometimes, and on Hollis Street, you can't go on the east side of Hollis. It's impossible with a wheelchair to get by. There's two places with a sidewalk, and there's two
Hollis on
streets.
the east side, just between Park and 40.
No, between like Stanford and City Hall.
I'm aware of that. It's heating pretty bad.
Yeah, it's been there for a long time, and it's never.
We have to go after the private property owners to make those repairs. That's on our to-do list for sure.
But it's kind of discouraging if you go down there in a wheelchair and you can't get by, and you got to go all the way back to the corner and find other ways. So now I know you just can't use that side of the street, but it's not right. Could be fixed.
Do we need to vote on funding today? We didn't have to do that.
We did that.
You guys already did that.
I have one
We
more.
did that. What else? Wait, is this a member comment or is this something else?
This is, I think it's Public Works. On the corner of Shellmound and Christie.
Yeah.
There's that, like, where they're doing development there.
PG, right?
I
Do
just,
you mean at the
like, somebody
the
commented
height?
on that and click fix it, and last time I was passing this intersection, I actually saw somebody in a wheelchair have to go out in the street.
We've been trying to get PG
cover
to come
that.
back and make a repair there. They did some work on the gas line, and they have to come back to restore the pavement.
Was the gas line project?
Yeah. It was
I
to
see.
do with the hotel there.
Yeah. Is there like a timeline on when it's gonna be fixed?
Have you heard? No.
And the other thing with the Hyatt Hotel, when that was going up, they put this fence across the sidewalk so wheelchairs just couldn't get by. And I think the city should be on that. They shouldn't allow that to happen.
Yeah, it's not safe, and like I can walk out in the street and be okay as like by myself, like making sure that I'm looking behind who's coming behind me, but like a person in a wheelchair, like that's unacceptable. Like,
Well, it also meant that pedestrians had to be in the bike lane there, so if you were bicycling, then you had to negotiate sharing space with pedestrians, because there's actually a fair amount of pedestrian traffic on that block.
yeah.
I walk there.
There they are, right there.
Can I ask for, are we at did we do future agenda items?
We haven't gotten there yet. We're still
I'm sorry.
meandering through Public Works projects.
Okay.
Actually, we're requesting things of Public Works that, and they're supposed to be just reporting to us.
Miguel, I made a note to myself to email you to ask you for photos, since you said you took them.
I
But if
have
you
one.
remember to send them to See Clerk Fix, that would be great.
Okay, well, we're over time.
Otherwise, send them to
Okay.
me.
So let's move on to number 6.1, future agenda items.
I would, if there's time next time, I would love to take care of, I think number 7 and 8 on this future list are the same. I think it was that the amended design guidelines to remove the green planting strip.
Right.
Because as new projects come up, it would be really great to have that in place. But I think that the BPAC would like to change the design guidelines for bike ped off-road paths, off-street paths, because the Sherwood-Williams came to us with the design that's the same as.
They
the one
changed
that-
it.
I know they did, but just so that, they said, oh, well, we did it because this was the design guidelines, so we would like to change the design guidelines.
To allow for.
Well, so that the path is continuous, paved to DG without the planting in between.
Oh, got it.
If there's gonna be a planting, it goes to
So
one
this
side or
is,
the other,
you're
because
talking
that
about
hasn't worked.
number 8 there?
That has been a problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
So why
not-
should
the dogs
pedestrians
are
have to move out of the way of bicyclists on the
Well,
greenway?
people walk, there's.
What more width for
Yeah, yeah.
PG is what you're saying?
Well, what I want is to be more
Because we are
flexibility
in the
for
wrong
peds and
one,
bikes to share the space, because right now, peds tend to walk on the paved space, and if there's a bike coming, they can't move over, because they can't get to the.
Don't trip over the shrubs.
Well, it's a shared
And they're
path
not
and
gonna
you need to share it.
I know, and I do share it, but I often am sharing it with somebody who has a stroller and a dog leash across the path.
Sometimes a
and-
pedestrian says, oh, I should get out of the way, and they don't mind going over
I
there,
know.
but the
But they
plants are in the way.
can't, right, and on the section that Berkeley did, it's just
Okay,
paved
well, let's
and
discuss
DG
this on
and-
a future
Right,
agenda
so
I would like
item
to discuss that.
instead
I
of
would-
now.
right,
Because
so-
I'm
good
about to
point,
hit
good
the
point.
gavel unless I get going.
I would like to mention a couple things about the February meeting.
Okay.
One, we did say Bike to Work Day, to further discuss how to spend the money.
It's February or
right?
March?
February.
It's your call.
I think we can start.
What
soon.
are our officially scheduled months again?
We're doing it,
All but
All but-
December and August.
Right,
Okay, and they approved that?
yes.
Okay.
yes.
All right.
All right, so for February, aside from the Bike to Work Day item, we talked about bringing an update to the PED bike plan for you guys to review.
Good.
And I have to look at the scheduling, but it could feed into your work plan. So, the things that you might want to prioritize and so on. So that's another thing for February. The other thing for February is we had talked about having the Bay Street property manager and the Powell Street Plaza property manager come to BPAC to talk. In lieu of doing that, Miguel and I went out and met with Jenny Junninger with Regency, Centers Property Management, walked the site with us, and we came up with a bike rack plan. I think we told you guys about that.
That's Powell Street Plaza?
That's in Powell Street Plaza.
Awesome, thank you.
And we got an update from her saying they're gonna do a few this year and a few next year, but she's being a little vague on the timing. But the other thing I wanted to mention is that Nat, the new property manager at Bay Street, remember Jen, who was the property manager at Bay Street before, was going to come, and then she was gone. So now Nat is willing to come at the February meeting with his wife, who he says she'll have comments as well, because they both commute back and forth. But in any case, as I recall, you had comments about their ideas about their sort of bike stations and the kind of racks they were using and that sort of thing, and you wanted to, so if you still want to do that, okay.
And we want to be able to lock bikes to the poles,
Yes.
the light poles.
Okay, all right. So, that sounds like 3 different items.
And we have to vote on them, right? We have to vote on putting them on the agenda.
We already did.
Well, no, I mean, for right now,
No,
if you want to do it
now
for
we're gonna
February
do it.
is
Oh,
what
okay.
Tom is talking
Okay,
about.
so the 3 items are the Bike-to-Work-Day, the Bike-Pedestrian update, and kind of a combination of numbers 7 and 8.
Well, no, I think the third item that Marcy was proposing is having Nat visit from Bay Street. And 7 and 8
Okay.
can wait, but I just don't want it to get lost.
Well, I think that
Maybe March.
getting them when we can get them
Yeah.
wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, and then maybe use 7 and 8 as a backup. I'm fine with that.
Okay, so those are the 3, and then you don't want the number 7 and 8?
Well, that'll be a backup if Nat can't come. If he can, then we'll do that.
Yeah, he already said he would, unless he
Okay,
cancels.
okay,
I mean, that happens.
So I'm fine with doing that in March. It doesn't have to be next month.
Okay.
I
But
just don't want us to
we'd like
forget.
to suggest that even though we haven't got the 7 and 8, that if something comes into the planning department, they're going to be planning some pedestrian bike path that we
Right.
throw out that it's in consideration.
Well, it always
It'll
comes
come here.
to us anyhow.
It'll come
Right,
here.
but I just think, I'd just like to get it sort of on the books.
Definitely.
Like, change that design guideline.
So, the bike plan itself, the update, I mean, it can take as little time as you want, but if there's discussion about that,
No, I
it could
think
take a
that
good amount of
takes quite a
time. Bike to work day expense,
It's going to take 15 to 20 minutes minimum.
okay.
So I think to be clear on the update, it's really a status report. We're not necessarily updating the plan.
It's
right?
where we are.
Right.
Yeah, it's how much we've accomplished.
Right.
It's basically a reporting requirement for Measure B. who
Exactly.
provides.
Yeah, sorry.
So what do we need, 20, we need 30 minutes for that, do you think?
Depends on how much you guys talk.
Yeah.
Well, then we need an
I think
hour.
it'll trigger a lot of conversation.
We just went over the whole list, and it took us about an hour to go through all the projects.
And that was
There's
just
been
us.
a lot of accomplishments on the plan, and we just want to show that all.
You know what I'm wondering, if we should, can we move that to back a month so that it's not the same night as Nate? Because I think that could be a long discussion.
Nat,
I'm
Nate.
sorry. Because I really want to give time to the Bay Street discussion. I think that's important, but I also really want to give time to the update and really hearing about the projects. Can we move
There's
that?
no rush with the update, right?
Is there a
No, it was just more for information, to show you all the projects we've done and what the status is.
Yeah, so you want to push that back to March?
That, I would say not, yeah, and do Bay Street since Snap has already said he can come, because let's just give these.
Bike to work, Bay Street, and that's it?
Well, we could discuss the design guidelines, that might be a short discussion.
Yeah, I think we all agree on it anyway.
Number 7 and 8.
Except for you.
Except for me.
Yeah, right.
The pathway, bike pathway design guidelines.
And, you know, and the bike plan, I mean, it could be a two-part thing too. You don't have to finish all in one meeting, but.
Okay, so shall we say that we would like to put those items on the next agenda?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, yes, we do, right?
Okay,
Yes.
Yes, ma'am?
Yes.
We got a big ped thing this meeting. We're usually all just talking bikes, right? I'd say Powell Street was more pedestrian oriented than bike oriented. We gotta do more of that.
That's because bicyclists don't go there.
Because it's.
I mean, the last time I went there, I thought, I'm not coming here again for a long time.
That's true, because bicyclists can get around it more
Yeah.
easily than pedestrians are.
Yeah.
They're sort of forced
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
put their lives at risk.
Yeah.
Can I add one item for a future agenda? It's not urgent at all, I just want us to have it done before the next bike plan, which is the intersection of Stanford and Horton. I think that Stanford Street needs to be restriped, so I just want us to look at it. Hopefully we'll take care
Paint, signs, that's the easy part, right?
Yeah.
of it. Well, I don't think it's gonna be restriped.
So,
A lot of
so
people
let
think it's one
me,
way, they're on the wrong side of the
so
street.
for next month, you're saying Bike to Work Day and Bay Street Property Manager, and then March is the ped bike plan.
Right.
And then,
next month, if there's time, we could do the 7 and 8.
Yeah, something about they wanna do that,
and then at some
they wanna
point,
defoliate the greenway.
the intersection at Stanford and Horton in
That
March or
could go,
April.
yeah, that could be in the future. And hopefully, I don't know, hopefully that's a short thing. It's a very small piece of pavement.
Does anybody have anything to say about the other items that are on the future agenda item list? Number 3, we just covered.
did
Just
that.
basically
Yeah,
did,
that
yeah.
was January, we did it.
Did we talk about 2?
Yeah, let's talk about two.
Idaho?
Well, I'm not saying we should talk about like next month or anything, but
Yeah.
I just want to
Let's keep
know.
it. Let's keep it.
Yeah, it says keep, but I don't know if anybody wants to schedule it at any point or
Oh,
just
you
leave it
know
on
what?
there.
We've talked about that before, haven't we?
So,
I'm
is
opposed to
paving going to begin in
Yeah.
March?
Sure, you're already
I'm
running
just
stop
wondering if maybe
signs.
we should put this on February
then why
instead of
not
7 to 8, number 6.
Make
The
it
paving
legal.
contrast
Because then
to
they'll go
address-
too fast,
Oh,
and
no,
they'll start thinking they have the right of way.
Oh, or is
We'll
March
have
when we were
mayhem.
thinking we could talk?
This is
about?
not Idaho. This is California.
Okay,
Emeryville.
so let's do number 6 in
California,
March, because I do
California's
think
fucked
that's important.
Okay.
Too many
I beg
people,
your
there's
pardon.
too many people, there's 40 million people.
Okay, well, cool, it looks like we're moving through this.
How many people live
Awesome.
in that?
Thank you for making that list,
600,000.
Mercy, that's great.
Yeah, it
Not
is.
very
Thank you for having
That's
us, that was.
right.
Yeah, I always have that.
People already
So the
yield.
meeting adjourned
All
yet?
right.
Actually, people don't yield at stop signs. Cyclists.
Is the meeting adjourned?
It's
Okay, are we
when-
done with
when-
it? I'm
when
gonna
it's
adjourn this
repaid,
meeting. If you
so I
guys wanna
about
talk
striping.
outside of the meeting, you go ahead.
Whatever's being repaid for this summer, like every summer,
Oh,
there's a
yeah.
paving plan.
Get
talk
on
about
top of it.
striping. Yeah, so,
Surfacing schedule, have more traffic.
yeah, just to talk about if there's opportunities to do something.
They usually approach us with that. Okay, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Good.